All right, it's the December meeting of the Hainesport Township Joint Land Use Board. I'm Tom McKay, the chair. It's 6:30, and it's a call to order. The first order of business will be a flag salute. All stand, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, can the clerk read the sunshine law notice?
Notice that this meeting was published in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act.
All right. We have a standard announcement that we will start no new business after 10:30. So if something's ongoing at 10:30, we'll finish it, but we won't start anything new after that point. May I have a roll call, please, of who's in attendance?
Mrs. Torty? Here. Mr. Bradley?
Here.
Mrs. Kelly?
Here.
Mayor Gilmore? Absent. Mr. Tricoci? He's not here.
I thought he was here. No?
Mr. Doverita?
Here.
Mr. C. Murphy?
Here.
Ms. Cosco? Here. Mr. Holden?
Here.
Mr. R. Murphy? Here. Mr. McKay?
Here.
And Mr. McKay?
Here. We have a quorum?
Yes.
Thank you. We have three items for business tonight. Hainesport Mobile Home Park, the Palante application, and JDEB, also known as the Rife property. So we're going to take them in the order they appear on the agenda. First, Haynes Mobile Home, which is case A on the agenda, 23-01A. Who's here for that?
Gary Zangerly on behalf of the applicant.
Good evening, Mr. Zangerly. How are you?
I am well, and yourself?
Good, good. You have, I'm sure, the letters from the planner,
Yes. Yes, I do.
and also from Alimo, the latest letter from Alimo, November 26th, and
I don't know if I have that.
I just got it the other day, but Alimo has a September 3rd letter. You have that.
Yes, I do.
And then this one came in the mail just the other day,
Not to me.
November, well,
It was sent by email.
yeah, you're on the you're on the distribution. You want a moment to look at that?
Yeah, but I don't want to lose my place.
That's a tough one.
Okay, well, we'll address it then. Is there anything?
Maybe Mr. Nicholson can do a quick study while you work on other things.
Well, I'm prepared to begin.
All right. Let me just ask you, how would you propose to deal with this? I think, we have the Taylor design comments, which you can go over.
Well, we can address Mr. Taylor's design comments, and
Mr. Taylor, your last letter was August 29th. Do I have the last one?
Yes.
Okay.
Majority of the revisions were largely engineering, and I'll make a few verbal modifications.
Yeah, they were, and that's why I thought we'd get your letter out of the way, and then a lot of the November 26th Alimo letter is to mark things satisfied or completed.
Well, we've been working, so Mr. Nicholson has been working with them, and we can go through the letter if you'd like. I can, as you know.
Well, I don't want to, we don't need to go over it line by line, but we have a couple of issues to deal with. First of all, we have some bulk variances that you need, correct? And,
We've resolved that issue.
okay,
There are two bulk variances related to how close buildings are located to each other.
right, 5 foot instead of,
And I believe one is building 13 and 12. 12 is a vacant pad site, and 13 is a new site. We're just going to move them. If we turn them on a diagonal, then we eliminate and get the 5 feet and bring it up to 10. And that's in conformance with the requirements.
all right, so you're going to deal with that by that.
And there's the second one, which was the shed is, and I believe it was 16 and 17 on the plan, and the shed was too close to 17, which wasn't the unit that the shed is intended for. We're just going to move the shed closer to 16, which is the unit that it's intended for, and would be in conformance with the requirements then. So, and I briefly spoke to Mr. Taylor about that.
Okay.
But we will change the plan, modify the plan, and ask that it be, the modification of the condition of this approval.
Are you satisfied with that resolution, Mr. Taylor?
I am. So
Your
they're
comments?
complying, and if they can't comply with those requirements, they have to come back to the board. But they're saying they'll revise.
But apparently they can, and so they're going to do that. All right, now we have a couple of design waivers. And can you address those?
Well, we did, if I can.
Or did we do those?
B3 on our report, page 3 of 7.
Right.
And this does remain outstanding, I believe. The Haynes Mobile redevelopment plan allowed for up to 4 parking spaces on the site that are within the Greenwood Avenue portion of the site that's to be vacated, and utilized with the commercial use on the adjacent block and lot. And I believe, unless the plan is modified to show only 4.
Well, I checked the agreement with Allen, because those are the parking spaces are being provided to Allen as a easement, and our agreement is that it's 4. So we have no problems modifying this to 4. If we do come into a problem, I'll bring it up with Mr. Gillespie as to the final agreement. There's a developer's agreement that's not completed yet. Very close, but there's a few items and issues to be resolved in terms of the wording, and
So as long as I think if you identify in the plan that 4 of those 6 spaces are to be utilized by Allen,
Okay.
then I think that relief can be withdrawn and it's in compliance with the development plan.
we'll so note it on our plan.
All right, and then there are a series of other comments on building design, lighting, et cetera, on the subsequent pages of the report. Can you address those either
Well,
in bulk or individually?
I'll do it individually, if you'd like, if I could. The lighting, we asked that it be a condition of the approval, that we will work with Mr. Taylor to come up with a lighting plan that satisfies your requirements.
All right. Mr. Taylor, are you acceptable with that?
Yes.
We can work with the applicant on that. All right. And you'll provide any design information that is necessary as well?
Yes. I know that there was a brief discussion about sidewalks.
Yes.
We do not believe, and I can bring Mr. Nicholson up to testify, and these are internal sidewalks in the development. We don't believe that it's cost-effective or appropriate in this regard. in this development for the internal sidewalks.
So briefly, why is that?
Well, do you want to come up, Fabio? I swear in the applicant, you can address that.
Sir, raise your right hand, please. You swear or affirm the testimony you give tonight, the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Would you tell the board your full name
My name is Fabio Bari,
and your relationship with the applicant?
and I am one of the owners of the Haynes Mobile Home Park.
All right. So the question is, why is there no need for sidewalks?
So all the new homes that are being put in will have their own walkway directly from the street to their home. So tenants will generally pull up and park pretty much right in front of their walkway and have their own sidewalk that goes to their home. So it's really not necessary to have full sidewalks around the park.
And Mr. Zanger, do you have an exhibit or something that perhaps the board can see the general layout? Do you guys have an easel or a rendering that might help the board see the sort of nature of the application and the layout?
Yeah.
All right, mark that as do we have it previously marked?
We have, I don't believe we've marked anything.
We
No.
haven't marked anything.
All right, so we'll mark that as, Mr. Zangley, as Exhibit A for tonight.
Yes.
It's the overall site plan, it's called. And the board members should have this in their packet.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Zangley, while you are fiddling with that, I'm gonna take a 2-minute break in the proceedings so everybody can stretch and get up. I need to get a better pair of reading glasses out of my car. The ones I brought in are not sufficient. So I will be back, but you guys set that up, all right? So we're gonna take 2 minutes, as long as it takes me to get out to my car and back.
The table design letter?
Scott,
I never saw it. It must be from before. That's a limo. It must have been from a previous time. I'm not sure.
They're on the table.
They're on the table.
Yeah, he kind of threw me for a loop when he.
I don't see it marked on here. We've got a lot of stuff.
First 48 hours.
I would say yes.
more organized next time.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We're probably back to the beginning. You're not.
Yeah, I just.
What a mess.
He didn't turn red though.
Yeah, I think he did a little bit.
Yeah, he does.
Mr. Holden looks good too.
Yeah.
These are the things that
You look good.
have to do with
Did you lose some weight?
And then the
25.
trash enclosure, a little more up here. So
It's
I'm gonna
crazy
give it
how
a
that
brief-
just changes everything.
25,000, I grew my hair back.
and what you
Looks
want
good.
to do in general terms.
Now me and Kathy have the same conversation.
Yeah. As I call my husband, the silver fox.
You've always been pretty good at
Got lots of silver foxes anymore.
doing it.
He's sitting at the big kids table?
Yeah.
We moved from the kiddie table to the big kids table.
I know, it's not always as fun now.
Look,
Then you really made it when you
That's
get
the
there.
adult table. As they say, the grown folks.
The grown folk table.
Thank you.
The trees we have to work out. Mhm.
Trees that are outside the tree line, none of them are so, as it comes out to the tree, there's maybe big.
Paula, can we reopen the record when?
Yes.
All right. Mr. Zangle, you all set up?
Yes, we are.
All right, you want to take us through what,
Well, I would like
you
to,
probably have a little presentation.
yeah, you kind of threw me for a loop, Mr. Chairman.
Pardon me?
You kind of threw me for a loop, Mr. Chairman, when you started. And I was all set to give you my spiel.
I don't want to deprive you of your spiel.
Thank you very much. As you probably know, this is a redevelopment area in need of rehabilitation. We came here, we explained to Paula and other representatives of the town that my client had recently purchased the park, wanted to upgrade the park, wanted to expand the park as part of the upgrade, and and they go hand in hand. The expansion makes it more financially and economically possible to upgrade the existing portion. So we've been in discussions with Mr. Gillespie about the rehabilitation and developers agreement. I want to point out right away that that has not been fully memorialized in writing. There's several issues, mostly having to do with the COA requirements, because 3 of the units will be dedicated to low and moderate housing. And I point that out because Mr. Taylor's letter mentions 4, and that was in an earlier, because since then, since August, it's been set at 3. What's unclear is the mix between low and mod, whether 2 will be moderate and 1 will be low, or 1 will be moderate and 2 will be low. And also whether we're going to sell or lease the units. And some other issues are still out there, but Mr. Gillespie and I will work that out, and we would like that to be a condition of approval tonight.
All right, just not to throw you off your prepared remarks, but what's the importance of the low mod in terms of the township and obligations to the,
Well, it's part of their it's part of their plan, and I can't tell you that I'm an expert on their plan, but I know that every time I speak with Mr. Gillespie, he talks in reference to the plan and how this will impact the plan. So it is part of their low and mod obligation, or their plan for that. You have here the plan, the actual site plan, and these along here, and Nicholson will clarify, but these are the new product, new units, and these are also, they're marked out, there's some that are some existing sites where there is no unit, no mobile home. That's where, right now, we think we're going to locate the low and moderate homes. But one of the issues with Mr. Gillespie and I is him writing in some flexibility on that.
All right.
In any event,
But that would be a condition of approval that you and Mr. Gillespie sort that out,
yes,
memorialize it in an agreement.
yes, absolutely.
Right.
Um,
It's important to the town for its low and mod housing obligations under the Supreme Court
Yes.
rulings and
That,
that
that's
everyone's
correct.
aware of, I think.
This will assist in them meeting their obligation, the town meeting its obligation. We've sworn in Fabio, and he's going to briefly speak to you about the developer and what they intend on doing.
All right, sir, floor is yours.
Thank you. So when we took over Haynes Mobile Home Park, it was called Goss Mobile Home Park at the time, and it was completely mismanaged and neglected, and the quality of life for the residents there was not something acceptable to our standards for how we operate parks. Kathy knows-
Your company is in the business of running this kind of a park.
Yes, yes, we are. So we've had other projects where we've turned around, mismanaged and neglected parks, and we saw this as a great opportunity to do the same when we took over. Within 48 hours of owning the park, we had a major water line rupture that this was, I think, the day before Christmas or 2 days before Christmas, right after we took over. And we, immediately had to step in and got the full scope of just how bad the water lines were in the park. So we immediately had to start making investments into the park to improve the infrastructure, the water lines, the electrical lines were not in a safe state where they posed risks to the residents. Kathy knew very well, the complaints of the tenants that were there, and we did the best that we could to improve everything. We've replaced the water lines, we've worked on the electrical lines, and we saw, given the water clock, to the side of the existing 24 pads, that there was opportunity to expand and do further improvements to enhance the quality of life for the residents in the community. At which point we started the discussions with Paula, with Scott, with John, with the town, to see the feasibility of getting the area rezoned for the redevelopment and making further improvements such as the roadways, the improved mail center, a better trash enclosure system, and then in addition, the 10 lots that we would add to the park.
Okay, and then the additional 10 lots gave rise to the obligation to
the COA.
to satisfy the affordable housing requirements.
Correct.
Okay.
And just to clarify, Mr. Chairman, if I can on that point, under the town's ordinance, the 10 new units would have generated an affordable obligation of only 2 units. So that was part of the town's discussions with the applicant, that during the redevelopment plan, there was a discussion of a potential of up to 4. The town had settled on a total of 3. So we're getting 1 additional that will help the town meet its constitutional and court mandated affordable housing obligation.
Right, right. We might get into the details of that obligation a little bit later, but for now, I think that should be sufficient. If the board members, save your questions at the end. If we have any board members who have a question on that, then we can ask that. So I interrupted you, sir, but please continue.
That was basically the impetus for why we decided to take on this project, and just thought that it would be beneficial to the town, to the existing residents of the community, and an overall improvement to the area.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Can you, please don't leave. I still don't know why their sidewalks are not required.
Well, we'll get to that.
Oh, okay, I mean, that's why the gentleman stepped
So,
up.
right, we started initially discussing that. So when residents pull in, they generally park right in front of their own home. You see the new proposed homes, they all have their own sidewalk essentially that go directly to the entrance to their home. So
But not the existing ones.
Not existing, these are all new here.
Yes.
So a resident would, the owner of this home would, pull up, park right in front of their walkway, and be able to have access.
But
to
suppose they wanted to visit their neighbor 3 units away, they'd have to walk in the road?
Right, yeah, it's across the street, and then this is their.
Okay.
But they're not delineated on here, but all the existing homes have their own, pathway to their unit as well.
Okay, thank you.
All right. If I can maybe ask Mr. Taylor, since I think the sidewalk comment was out of your letter, what was, if you explain to the board and the thought on making that point?
So it is a requirement of the ordinance. If this were a new development coming in, the residential site improvements would require sidewalks. The only thing I will say, particularly in the existing portion of the development, the roadway width, which is being increased to be 30 feet wide to allow parallel parking on both sides, it really doesn't allow any room for there to be an adjacent sidewalk the way you would have that in a typical single-family development. It is isolated, it's sort of its own cul-de-sac, so the number of traffic trips is going to be relatively low, so I don't have a major concern, and it has functioned this way in the past. But this is sort of a unique layout and configuration of the site.
Right. Okay. Mr. Zangler, you want to continue?
Yeah, well, I would ask Mr. Nicholson now to explain the engineering.
Mr. Nicholson,
You affirm that your testimony will be the truthful, truth, and nothing.
Yes, I do.
Mr. Nicholson, you've appeared before this board innumerable times, so
I have.
we accept you as qualified to testify
Yes.
on the matters at hand.
Yes.
Do you plan on talking about Alimo's letter
Yes.
as part of your
Yes.
presentation?
Yes.
Okay. So we can use the Alimo November 26, 2024 letter as a guide or an outline for your speech, and board members can then follow that.
What's out there on the board is sheet 1 of the resumes that was previously submitted. The 10 proposed units are on the side over here on the east side of the property. One is down the middle of the left side of the existing units, and the dark ones, unit 6, 17, and 12 are the infill units we discussed. The infill units. Also, across the top of the plan is Greenwood Avenue, which is a existing township street, and perpendicular to the range which goes out to 38. Proposed to mitigate Greenwood Avenue ultimately, we would get half of the street to become part of our property, the other half would go to 2 properties to the north of us, and the Allen and Black 5 over to the left.
That's another arm.
And then we have a Greenwood Allen, we would get their half back to us if we gave these to the parking that we discussed. So ultimately, this strip over here would be part of our project, it's parking for us.
I can't hear him.
Parking over here for Allen, and then.
Bill, you have to use the,
Here, I have some members who cannot hear you when you talk at the board, so you can turn that on and then sort of talk to the board as well, please.
Going now?
No.
no.
Take Marty's.
You want to use this? Can you use this?
Should probably take Marty's.
There we go. We on now?
Bill, can you try Marty's? Grab that one from off of Marty. Swap them. There you go.
How about that?
Okay.
Better?
Better.
Okay.
Thank you.
Should I start again, or do you?
If somebody has a question, they'll jump in.
Okay.
But, so let's not repeat. You're talking about the Greenwood Avenue street issue, vacating that.
Yeah, I think I covered that. Let me go back to that just one more time. So up here is Greenwood Avenue up top. Half of the street would come to us. The other half is going to Allen's, was a propane site up here on top. And then we would get that back. There was an agreement with us between Allen's and us where we would get this piece of property back to our property. We give this easement an interconnecting driveway to their site for an emergency access to their site from the back. And this little piece up here in the northwest corner would go to lot 5. I don't remember the use of that lot, but that would go to them and stay with them.
It's Enterprise.
Yeah, and then up in this corner up in here also is where we're going to put construct the trash enclosure, which is currently now located down over here. Then also in the northeast corner of the site, we're going to do a little community center, mail center up here with some parking spaces there. It's kind of a entrance point to the site. The units will all be hooked into the proposed sewer line, which we're going to construct down the side over here. All units will have sheds built here and sidewalks, as the applicant has mentioned. I think that's generally what the scope of the work overall.
All right, let's take a look at the Alimo letter. You have that in front of you?
I do.
So the stormwater calculations requested have been provided?
Yes.
Okay. If we go to page 2 of the Alimo letter, under the site plan category, I'm looking at the open matters, since it appears that all the others have been agreed to. We have number 2, the proposed parking spots. I guess there's a dimensional issue that has to be added. You're going to do that?
Yes.
All right. What about number 3? That's the driveway.
Yeah, well, maybe make it easy for you, Mr. McKay. Items 1 through 9 will take care of all of them under the issue site plan.
You will. Thank
Take care of them all affirmatively.
Thank you for shortcutting that with me.
Grading and drainage, number 10 and 11 number 10's satisfied, number 10, 11 is open, pardon me. 11 is a grading issue, we'll correct that grade that's mentioned in item 11. 12, 13, 14, 15, and 12 and through 15 are just grading issues also. We'll take care of those in the revised plan. And 16 through 20, 20 are related to the drainage design. We agreed to make corrections. I talked to Mr. Miller on the phone today about this and had some agreement on how we're going to handle some of these issues, particularly 17, 18, 19, and 20.
So 16 through 20, these various, I'll call them stormwater runoff / grading issues, you're in agreement to do all of those?
Your engineer satisfaction, yes.
Okay. And 21 is some construction details that need be put in?
Take care of that also, that's no problem.
So
As
that,
well as item 22 and 23 in the general comments.
all right, you agree to those as well?
Yep.
24, the ADA compliance?
They put a note to the plan to that effect, yes.
All right.
Rest of administrative items, I think, beyond that.
All right, 25 is a cost estimate for escrow. Has that been provided?
Not yet, no.
All right, but you will do that?
Sure.
Quickly?
Yep. Once we get the plans all squared away, we'll get the cost estimate of your engineer, yes.
All right, so that'll come with the plans, with the revised plans?
Yes.
Okay. 26, of course, is all our approvals are subject to approval by the fire official and the planner. 27, will that be covered with the updated plans?
That's a standard comment, we agree to that, sure, that's as usual, yes, there's no
Okay.
problem.
28, I'm going to direct to Mr. Zangali, that's a certification on the taxes having been paid on the property.
We will provide that.
You will, have you provided it, or you will?
He's fine.
It has been done?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is there a letter for the fire official yet, do we know?
I believe in the file I saw a letter from the fire official.
You want to mention about
Yes.
paving in front of the clubhouse?
Don't we address that?
Paving in front of the clubhouse.
Yes.
All right, let's get, what are we're talking about, we're sort of jumped from going over this list to a paving issue. That has to do with the surrounding of the clubhouse?
Well, the parking spaces in front of the community building will be paved. I think there's a confusion, maybe the legend's not quite right. It might infer that it's gravel, not paving, but because it's an accessible space and there are spaces right there, they'll be paved, not gravel.
Okay, so on this plan, it says gravel, but on the final, it'll be paved.
Yes. Is that your issue,
And
Marty?
it's where the handicap parking is, so the paving is much more.
Has to be paved, really.
Sure, we agree.
All right. Let me just see if, Mr. Miller, anything else on your letter that we need to touch on?
Now, we're taking care of the drainage, we're gonna work that out. We were working on it, we're pretty good with that.
Okay. And any other points that we may have inadvertently missed that need to be touched?
Most of the others, just details to put on the plan.
Right, and the applicant's engineer has agreed to make sure all those details get added to the plan.
Yes, indeed, we will do that.
Okay. Before I go to the board, Mr. Taylor, on the planning side, are there any issues that you want to go back and address or bring up?
From our report, and I assume that the applicant is going to agree to comply, and we can, if there are a couple of items you want to provide testimony on. They're noted in our report, but we would just, to circle back, that there is a requirement that for this application, Greenwood Avenue will need to be vacated. That should be identified as a condition of approval. That has already been contemplated, and that will be the subject of redevelopment agreement. They're going to be, because of the relationship with the Allen Soil, being able to use a portion of that, and half that vacation as identified by Mr. Nicholson will go to Allen initially and come back.
Right.
The second would be, if you identify that, the board were to look at this favorably for the project to comply with the UHAC, the affordable units comply with the uniform housing affordability controls as required, that the units will be dispersed, final location to be the subject of a redevelopment agreement within the community, that it also comply with any other affordability requirements, settlement agreements, or orders in the court, so that it does help the township meet its required affordable housing obligation.
And Mr. Zangali, I assume you're in agreement with all of that?
And I note that the alignment letter refers to disclosure of any covenants or any restrictions and easements, one of which will be the designation of the 3 units, and that'll be a filed restriction. How we do that is something that Mr. Gillespie and I are still talking about.
Right, that's paragraph 29 of the Alimo letter of November 26 that you're referring to.
Yes.
One final thing, Mr. Zangali, I think if you have the Taylor design letter in front of you, and if you went to page 3 of 7, item number 4 there, that's a bullet point of some issues that perhaps should be covered by you in a brief argument.
I can briefly discuss it. I believe what we did work out is that we're going to move and relocate some of the buildings and structures, so we'll do away with the need for a variance. If we can't, I'll come back and ask for a variance here.
All right.
Because I believe there's grounds, but this is the easier way to just do it.
Right.
The relief requested under B1, 2, and 3 is withdrawn. They will comply, so that obviates.
There are a couple of things in the Taylor letter that we wanted to address.
All right, go ahead, floor is yours.
Basically, for one, there's a request for a bicycle rack.
There was,
Yeah.
or there is.
There is. We just don't believe that they're necessary. This is not a single-family subdivision or apartment building. People, if they have bicycles, are going to bring them to their trailer.
I guess perhaps there was a thought that the bicycle rack up by the, do we call it the community center to be built?
More accurately, the mail room, and, yeah, but up towards there, yes.
Well, I guess Mr. Taylor, the bicycle rack was your suggestion.
It was identified in the redevelopment plan as something that would be part of the initial presentation was to create amenities and things for residents. Because it is single family in nature, it's not critical. People will likely put their bikes or chain their bikes to their front steps or something.
Right, I mean, individually at the houses they would, and I guess the question is where would they not have that opportunity, and that would be up at the community center. And so it might be might be a good benefit to have it up there.
Well, I question the actual benefit because people would have to leave their trailer, walk over to get their bike, and then they're more likely just to put their bike in or next to their trailer.
All right. So you're opposed to the bike rack, Mr. Taylor? How strongly do you feel on that?
You know,
Not terribly. A bike rack is $88, so it's
I-
really not a big deal either way. I don't think it's critical.
You know, I didn't know the number, but I didn't think it was a big deal either.
Yeah.
Mr. Zangari seems to think it is a big deal.
well, I didn't know the number either, but so, I don't want to spend $89 talking about it.
All right, Mr. Zangari, anything else that you need to talk?
There's a mention of irrigation.
Yes.
Irrigation systems being installed, and this project just doesn't sustain that type of financial expenditure. You know, there's a pretty tight margin here. We were surprised during the course of the development talks of the need for a drainage system, and that was an added expense. And, you know, every time you go through a development process, there's always added expenses you didn't anticipate. We really don't believe it's the type of community that is justified, and B, that it's financially doable.
All right, anything else?
There is the comment about trees. We will work with Mr. Taylor and the township to be in compliance with your recently adopted ordinance.
All right, so that'd be a conditional approval to take care of that.
Yeah.
All right.
What? The trash. Okay, yeah, we would also request that the trash enclosure, which is at page 5, number 5, the material be converted, again, for cost reasons, from cinder block to a wooden fence, and that it not be an it be a 3-sided enclosure and not a gate. We think that the gate itself would be difficult for the residents to handle, to open and close the gate. And it's easier for them just to come up and now, that may change. It may change when the local contractor decides he can dump his construction waste there, and we may have to take steps then. But to begin with, we would like it to not be an enclosed structure, and also to be wood for cost reasons.
I think what was proposed is pretty standard from our point of view in terms of a trash enclosure. And I think, I don't know who's best to deal with this, Mr. Taylor or Marty, but...
It was actually written in as a requirement in the redevelopment plan to provide a durable masonry enclosure.
And there's good reason from experience for that.
At a minimum, and something else for the board to consider, I would not recommend wood. Wood rots in a very short period of time. At an absolute minimum, I would recommend a solid vinyl fence. It goes all the way to the ground. It is much more durable and it doesn't allow trash to blow out. In terms of gates, what we normally see happen is, for a project like this where there's a residential component, there can be a 3-foot opening on one of the sides so the residents can walk up to it and put their trash in there. But the gates and the dumpsters and recycling containers are not visible. It's right at the end of the roadway, so everybody leaving and coming in will be driving by the open trash enclosure. So I think the gates can be there, residents can still access through an opening on the side. And then when the refuse management company comes, they can open the gates, pull that out, which is typical for that kind of an operation.
Mr. Zango, you're bumping up against a proven design that we require.
So just to clarify, there would have to be 2 gates on each side because there'll be a regular trash and recycling dumpster.
Well, the number of gates can really be worked out as a matter of engineering, but to having an enclosure on the front, so trash doesn't blow, and so that everyone that drives in and out isn't driving by a series of dumpsters and.
So it would be a vinyl gate?
There would be some type of a gate to screen visibility of that area.
Yeah, the agreement essentially would be you agree to a trash enclosure along the lines proposed by the planner, approval conditioned on working those details out.
The concern on our side is just that the practicality of relying on the dumpster company to actually close the gates and residents, if they don't feel like going around it to the side gate, they just open it up and then the
Those
gates
are-
end up staying open and
Those are always a concern, but the design still is the better design. All right, so that's
And the
it's
question would be, would the board entertain a relief to vinyl fence in lieu of masonry? That would be really for the board to provide some design waiver relief if they want to move off of the masonry portion of that.
all right, board, let's note that to come back to when we go through questions.
And I believe, one last item, and that is, I just want to be clear, there's reference to patios, and that is in the new section. In the existing section, they don't have patios, and whatever, it should be clear that we're not going to install patios on the new section, on the old section, only in the new.
Okay.
Is there anything else? That's good. That's it. I believe that's
That's all you have.
comments
Okay.
regarding the fence.
All right, we'll just stand there. Marty, any questions or comments? Or we covered everything you need to know?
I think with that, we covered most of it. We have a lot of the
consider.
problems that we have with the existing site is that the driveway is so narrow that creates some traffic problems going in and out. With the
It's being widened though, right?
improvement of the widening of both the roads makes everything more functional.
Bob, you have any questions on, in terms of doing the resolution of issues that we've discussed?
Was there a resolution of the irrigation issue?
Yes. Well, no, it wasn't. It was, the applicant's position is
There is
it's,
one other issue. The letter makes reference, Mr. Keller's letter, to considering sodding. And once again, we don't think that's an appropriate cost for us to assume. And so it says consider, but I want to be upfront and honest that, we're not intending on sodding. For one, we don't really know where the frontage is. There's not really any frontage here. I guess it would refer to the front yards, but it's not been sodded in the existing, and we don't really feel as if it's appropriate for us to pick up the cost to sod the property, nor do we think it would, especially without irrigation, last.
We don't have a major concern with that. It's a comment that we put in those reports, and the board then discusses it if they feel strongly one way or the other.
well, I have a list of items. We'll talk to the board about it before we have a move a resolution. Let me open it up to board members. Anybody have questions of Mr. Zangerly in regard to anybody who wants to talk, just raise their hand.
So a couple issues on the affordable housing. There will not be an affordable housing fee on the 3, obviously, affordable housing units, but on the 10 new units, there will be an obligation for...
My discussion with Gillespie was that no, there would not be the fee.
So your understanding,
That's
based
my
upon
understanding.
your discussions
But
with...
we discussed that a while ago. I'll be happy to discuss it.
Okay, because I believe it's a mandated lawful requirement that any new
Well-
units, but that'll be subject to the redevelopment agreement?
Yes.
Okay. And then phasing as well, in terms of issuing a CO
Oh, yeah.
and as the affordable house, so,
That will be an agreement, just, you want to explain, you can.
So- 35% of the new units, you must ensure that there's one affordable ready to go for CO, and then the next 35%, another unit, and then the final 30% of the new units will be the third.
We agreed to that.
Yep. And that'll all be part of the redevelopment agreement.
Yes.
And so we're clear, that's the development agreement that he's referenced before, is working with Mr. Gillespie on.
Yes.
Okay, and this approval is going to be obviously subject to that agreement being finalized and signed.
That's our understanding and that's our representation.
Yeah. And our goal is to have that for the January 7th committee meeting, day before the 8th land use meeting.
Right.
Okay.
Other board members, questions, please? Not a board member, but you have a question?
Is there any proposed signage for this community anywhere on site or at 38 or anything such along that?
We would like to put a sign up similar to Allen's on Route 38.
You envision that to be the subject of a separate application down the road?
If necessary, yes.
Is that in our redevelopment agreement, or is that in our,
No, there was
redevelopment?
no sign proposed or contemplated, and that would actually be an off-site sign. So they would have to return and get a variance
That's why I'm bringing it up.
for that, and that sign would have to then either be placed within the Lorraine Avenue right-of-way, which would require some type of lease or license agreement from the municipality, or an easement for Allen's to allow them to put it on their site. Sorry.
No, I want that on the record, so that if they come to me, I know where it stands at. And then just a suggestion, if the board would approve this application, there is hardware for fences that would make the so-called mandates for the people to bring the trash in. There is self-closing, self-latching systems in the hardware that allow that if an applicant or a homeowner goes in and empties trash, they can get in and out, but it will close slowly and it will close on its own, so you don't have that trash flowing, at least from there. Just a suggestion, and the board approves it. And then I guess the question I have is that in the redevelopment plans, we have sizes of sheds and patios that are defined in there, Taylor?
We do.
Okay, I just want to make sure that I have that, so when it comes forward.
Kathy, is that it? Anything else?
No, thank you.
Okay. Other members? Raise your hand, please. Let me know. Go ahead, Mr.
I
McCoy.
just wanted to clarify on the letter, it says that we proposed a 20 by 20 community center. And on the print, it shows a 10 by 20. Is that-
We downsized it as part of the plan, and we discussed that with Mr. Taylor, that subsequent to the issuance of that letter, I'll tell you what happened is, the details of the stormwater retention system became crystallized, as well as the cost. And so, we downsized the community center to the present, as the plans are presently.
So when, earlier, someone mentioned the community center, and someone said something that made me feel like I'm not sure. What is the intention of that building?
200%.
Community, exactly. You said community center, because these are things.
Sure, so previously, what we proposed was a covered mail area, which would have just been, typically for these types of communities, it's a cluster mailbox, just mounted into like a concrete pad. I would have just put like a small overhang over that. Now what we've proposed to Scott is in lieu of it was 20 by 30 pad that would have just been covered and had a couple picnic tables. Now instead we're proposing a more robust mail center, which will have overhead lighting, it'll have paneling, a bulletin board for community notices and things like that. And on the back of that, we'll have a little storage shed that'll serve for us to have materials on site. It'll look cleaner. We've provided a rendering of what that would look like. And it'll have direct access from the parking spaces right when you pull up.
Essentially, what was eliminated was there was a covered area with a picnic table or two underneath of it, and that was what the applicant was requesting to eliminate in consideration of the approvals associated with the stormwater management.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
And it's 20 by 12. not
Mr. Chairman, I do have a question.
Okay. All right, we have another question. Ms. Kelly?
Okay, my question concerns Greenwood Avenue. Are you saying that Greenwood Avenue is going to be open for fire safety only, or are people going to be can people drive to Greenwood Avenue to go out to 38?
Yeah, the Greenwood Avenue will remain. It won't, it's being vacated by the town. And needed, when it's vacated, one half goes to one side property owner, the other half.
Right.
Well, the agreement with Alan is that we will take all of this area, this is the access from Route 38 for the residents to come in and for trash to be picked up and for emergency services if they be needed.
Thank you.
So essentially, it will remain as like a private drive, is that correct?
If you give us a sign and they can find it then.
If you make the necessary application. All right, any other board member questions? All right, and I'll open it up to members of the public. If there's anybody who wants to ask a question or make a comment with respect to this application, you should raise your hand, and then we'll ask you to come forward and be sworn. I see one hand in the back. Ma'am, why don't you come forward?
And Mr. McKay, just so you know, there are two individuals online.
Okay, let me take the live question, and then we'll go to the online questions. So come on up. And just give us your name and your address. And
Ruth Myers, 415 Laurel Ridge Road. I just had a question. I guess my concern,
Before you start, I'm going to swear you in. Raise your right hand. You swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth, whole truth, nothing but truth.
I do.
Would you give me your name again, please?
Ruth Myers, Myers.
Thank you.
I heard that you were widening the roadway, I guess from 24-foot, which is like standard on small residential roads, to 30-foot to allow for parking on both sides, and therefore eliminating a sidewalk on one side of the road. And I guess what popped into my head is if there are children in these residences, is there a safety concern for children having to cross, because then someone said you could cross the road to access the sidewalk. Is there a safety issue or concern for children having to do that?
well, let me put that question to Mr. Zangerly and his client. You gonna
I'm
address-
sorry.
I'm going to put the question that you just asked to the applicant and his engineer and his client.
Okay, and that was the question, and I'm going to go through that.
I think it was the applicant's testimony that the sidewalk's really not required. I don't know if it's a matter of safety or not, but I don't think they don't think it's required to be utilized that much.
All right, Mr. Zangerly, you want to address that issue, particularly on the safety question the lady asks?
So, for one thing, the demographics, there's not a lot of children in these parks. You know, usually older people, adults, maybe a couple or maybe a family. And also, as Mr. Taylor said, there's not a lot of traffic going to be going here. And it's going to be lower speeds because it's a sort of a cul-de-sac. And we don't believe that it's a concern. It hasn't presented a problem
Careful.
for the existing properties. You know, so that there's no sidewalks there, and that hasn't presented any safety problem.
Ms. Myers, there's your answer. Anyone else? Comment or question? All right, let me turn to the people online. If you want to ask a question, unmute. If you don't unmute, I'll assume that you're not interested in asking a question. And the record is no one unmutes.
No one unmuted.
So that matter is over. Well, I'm going to close the public comment. Let me just ask the board again, any other questions? We had 4 items that Mr. Zangali talked about that were not really resolved. One was the design, what I call the design waiver request on the trash. Go with our standard design or something close to that versus the wooden proposal that Mr. Zangali has. Second is the irrigation issue. Third is the sod issue. And fourth is the bike rack issue, the $88 bike rack issue. Mr. Taylor, any further thoughts, or did I miss anything?
I'd be happy to answer any questions on those issues if the board has any.
Yeah, what's the board's feeling on these three issues? The sod and the irrigation, Mr. Zangali is opposed to. It sounds like he is willing to abide by our design waiver issues on the trash, as suggested by Mr. Taylor, and then there's the bike rack. So,
Do we resolve that the trash will be gated and vinyl?
well, that's the question.
Mr. Zangali needs to tell us yes or no.
We'll abide, we ask that we just abide, we'll work it out with Mr. Taylor. You know, the vinyl and how we put the gate in, taking Newcomb's recommendation into advice.
All right, so you're willing, and you and your client are willing to accept the modified design that's been proposed by Mr. Taylor and make that a condition of the approval?
Yes.
Okay, so that's done.
I'm comfortable with the waiver for the irrigation and the sod and the bike rack.
Okay, so that resolves the 4 items on my list. If I missed anything, you'll let me know. All right. Bob, do you need any further detail for the resolution? If someone makes a motion, assuming someone makes a motion? Irrigation waived, sod waived, bike rack waived. Sod, so no requirement for irrigation, sod, or bike rack, but on the trash container, subject to working out a precise design with Mr. Taylor, conditioned, the resolution will be conditioned upon that, and Mr. Zangali has agreed to work with Mr. Taylor on a suitable design. All right. Board members, can I have a motion on this matter?
We're asking for preliminary and final site plan approval, subject to the conditions we discussed, subject to the terms of the redevelopment agreement, and compliance with the eliminating the bulk variances that we discussed. And compliance with the engineer's letter and the...
Right.
And
And subject to all, I'm sorry,
and provisions of the redevelopment plan as well?
yes, I was just going to say that.
Sorry.
Thank you. No, I'm glad you brought it up. The redevelopment plan being that plan that relates to the affordable housing, so the public understands what that means.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion, and do we have a second for the motion?
Second.
Have a second? Is there any discussion desired on the motion? Looking around and hearing none. Let's have a vote, please.
Mr. Bradley?
Yes.
Mrs. Torti?
Yes.
Mrs. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. C. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Novarita?
Yes.
Mr. R. Murphy? Mr. Holden?
Yes.
Ms. Cosco?
Yes.
And Mr. McKay?
Yes. All right, Mr. Zangali, thank
Very
you.
much. Have a good evening.
Motion carries.
Sounded like it, too. She was, yeah, I didn't get everybody in. No. Yes, 5.
Thank you. All right.
May I ask a few just preliminary questions?
No,
Okay.
because that's not the way we handle the matter here. It's better to follow the organization that we set up. And the first is to hear from Mr. Singer and hear his presentation, because questions out of context aren't necessarily helpful
Oh,
questions.
it wasn't about the applicant, it was about procedure. So I do have many clients and they have individual concerns. I'd just like to make sure that they will have an opportunity to engage in public comment, even though I'm representing them.
They absolutely will, and you will too. If you look back to the hearing we just had, although we only had one person from the audience comment, I made sure that the audience had an opportunity to ask questions and to make comments.
Some
And so-
boards prefer testimony from my clients. I wanted to make sure they could just go up and make comments.
No, they'll be, we'll probably limit it to maybe 2 minutes a person, and, but we'll allow that. All right?
And in addition to that, we now also have people that listen online, and they also have the opportunity to make comments.
So, Mr. Singer, the floor is yours. We know this is a use variance. You've identified the property. Tell us why you believe under the law you're entitled to the use variance requested.
Mr. Chairman, as a preliminary matter, I'd like to submit to the board what has been an ongoing issue with the township with respect to its fair share and its obligations under the law to provide its fair share housing. I've been provided with initially a report from Banish Associates, which outlines the township's efforts to comply with the requirements of the statute in round 3 of the Mount Laurel housing. I also have a judgment that was entered by the court that deals with round 3 for compliance and repose against developers, and an amendment to that settlement agreement that I'd like to place in the record and mark it as exhibits.
A, B, and C?
A, B, and
No, or your board is A, so mark those B, C, and D. The first document can be B, the judgment can be C, and the amendment to the judgment can be D. And if you can provide those to the clerk, please.
I have sufficient copies for all the board members and
Thank you.
council for the objection.
Let me ask you a couple of questions on those. What are the dates of the exhibits? The memo, which is the first document,
The last memo is dated August 2, 2024. The judgment is dated August 7, 2024.
and Judge Kobe signed that up in Mount Holly?
Signed, Judge.
And what is what is the caption on that, so we
In the
understand?
matter of the application of the township transport
All right, and then the last document is an amendment to the judge?
to the settlement agreement that's dated July 13, 2023.
Okay. You marked quite an extensive stack of papers, and I don't want you to go over the whole thing, but I do want you, for the record, to summarize what those 3 exhibits talk about.
The Banish report is a status report to the court. Banish Associates was appointed by the judge, and to report back to her as to the efforts made by the township to satisfy their round 3 of their Mount Laurel requirements. The judgment is establishing the units that are required within the township, as far as I know, and I'm no expert at housing, but the units that are required with a component for low and moderate income housing. Apparently, it was identified within the judgment a developer for low and moderate income housing, and that developer apparently withdrew from participating within the township to build those units. The amendment, the last document, is allowing the township additional time, basically, to find a developer in order to satisfy the 5 units that remain to be satisfied as part of the judgment that was entered with the court in respect to the obligations of the township and meeting its round 3 requirements for Mount Laurel housing. That's how I understand those 3 documents to exist. I know your professionals within the town may be able to expand on that, but that's my understanding of the overview of those documents.
I'm not asking you to become an affordable housing expert, but just to give us an overview of the situation. From your knowledge of the affordable housing issues, are these kinds of obligations imposed on all towns in the state of New Jersey?
Yes, it is. It's a constitutional requirement of all towns within the state of New Jersey.
All right. So if you could then give us your client's application and summarize it, and then we'll then look at the witnesses after your summary.
Okay. Well, the application is to, in part, satisfy the township's obligations to create low and moderate income housing. The applicant proposes to convey title to the parcel to an entity that has experience in the construction, management, and funding of low and moderate income housing. In this instance, it's intended to service disabled veterans. The head of household must be a disabled veteran to qualify for this housing. It is subsidized housing. The applicant, the owner of the facility, will also manage the facility, and he will testify that he has and does now own and operate and manage facilities that he has developed and approved within the state of New Jersey. The applicant also intends to construct 6 single-family homes on the 6 lots that presently exist, although those lots are being modified slightly to construct market-rate homes. The 6 homes would have generated a necessity of providing 1.2 units of Mount Laurel housing. We are actually providing 6 units to not only satisfy the obligation of the development, but as well as satisfying and assisting the township in satisfying its obligations under the Round 3 agreement. That's an overview of the application. As I stated earlier, we will come back and fully engineer the site and, again, provide notice to the public of when the application for a major site plan and subdivision is filed. We intend to do so within the next 60 days following this application.
So you're looking tonight not for site plan approval, you are only looking for what is called a variance to enable you to develop the property along the very general lines that you've laid out to us. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's not uncommon to bifurcate an application like this so that should the board not approve it, the applicant hasn't spent considerable amount of money in engineering the site. So we first would submit the application as a use variance, and it's strictly contingent on coming back and satisfying the requirements of your ordinance in dealing with subdivision and site plan.
Now, in order to have a use variance approved, there are certain requirements that have to be met under the Land Use Act. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Can you address those requirements to us and talk about them, please?
I will in general, but I do have my planner here that will testify specifically as to why this site is particularly suited for the use. There are two components to the application with respect to the veterans home. Because it is a home for low, moderate, and dedicated for veterans who are disabled, that under the law, it's considered to be an inherently beneficial use, so that the positive criteria for that use is met by virtue of the use itself, and that we still have to prove the negative criteria that the site itself can accommodate the home and any issues that may arise as a result. But and then with respect to the homes, again, we have to provide special reasons why the property is specially situated, especially in particular in its location, and its location to other residential uses within the area, and that we're not interfering with the existing zone plan and zoning ordinance because of the location of where this property is in relation to the other residential units that are to the south of this site.
All right. Are you at the point where you're going to put some witnesses on?
Yes.
Okay, why don't you call your first witness?
Thank you. I'd like to call Frank Palente.
Mr. Palente, come on up. You'll need to be sworn by our solicitor.
You swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Mr. Palente, are you the contract purchaser of the properties that are the subject of this application?
Yes.
And you submitted an application this evening for a use variance to allow for the construction of the veterans home as well as to construct 6 units for 6 residential homes, correct?
Yes.
And give me a little background on F. Palente LLC. How long have you been in business?
Around 19 years.
Prior to going into the building business, what did you do?
I was a police officer in Mount Holly,
For how long?
20 years.
And since you've been developing, can you give the board some history as to how many units you've built, from the ground up, so to speak?
So I started out about 19 and a half years ago, just flipping houses one at a time, make some extra money for the family. It ended up getting bigger and bigger as I worked, 2 jobs. Ended up getting into new construction about 6 years ago, after I retired from the police department, and did a small subdivision in Lumberton where I was able to get 3 lots, and I built 2 houses there, one being my brother's, which was pretty cool. So after that, continued to do a couple small subdivisions, buy a couple lots here and there, and build them from the ground up. I did a lot of flips, but I didn't have all the pieces of the puzzle to be able to do new construction. Finally, about 6 years ago, I was able to get the proper Jasticon out of Medford for the foundation and a good framer. So that kind of completed the pieces of the puzzle. So since then, I've done about 15 houses from the ground up, 3 in a row in Mount Holly, a couple in Hainesport, right down here on New Jersey Avenue. Over the last year, I had built 2 there, also one down on Maple Avenue in Hainesport. In between Mount Holly, Hainesport, and Lumberton, it's been around 15, from the ground up.
And is it your intention that, should the board approve your reduced variances this evening, that you would then come back with a fully engineered plan for site plan and subdivision?
Yes.
And as part of your application regarding Lot 7, once you obtain the use variance, are you conveying that parcel to a third party in order to build and operate the home for the disabled veterans?
Right, for that third party to be able to.
You're not doing that?
Right, I'm not doing that, right.
Will you be doing the construction on the building?
No, I will not be doing the construction, just on if approved, the 6 lots, the 6 new construction homes.
If approved, you would just build the homes, the 6 homes. Someone else would be doing the construction of the so-called, what we're calling the veterans house.
Correct.
Okay. Continue, please.
I don't have any other questions with this witness, if any members of the board have.
Well, I have a couple of questions, but I'll let the board members go first. Anybody with questions of Mr. Palante? We'll take it bite by bite as we go through the testimony. No questions from members of the board? Well, Mr. Palante, question that I have, just generally speaking, what is your thought presently on the design of these houses that would be built, the 6 houses, if approved, if this use variance was granted?
Our engineer has elevations to show to the board.
Oh, he does?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm jumping the gun on
That's
it.
it. Yeah.
I was going to answer it.
Okay, that's all right.
And I can so real quick, I driven through the neighborhood and saw the construction of the homes there. And obviously, I'm not here to cause problems, just to build a few homes and want to keep it consistent with the neighborhood. I'm not looking to build, these huge houses, but just something similar to the neighborhood about, there look to be about, 2,000 to 3,000 square foot, somewhere in the middle there that would be consistent with the neighborhood that is there now.
All right, Mr. Singer is putting up another exhibit, which I think we're on E at this point. Let's call that Exhibit E. And it looks like a bunch of photographs of houses.
Show you what's remarked, this is these typical of what you're intending to build.
Yeah, so I've had an architect that I've worked with over the last 6 years since I've been doing the new construction, and he's got a lot of houses in his arsenal, so looking at the neighborhood and talking to him and doing his research, this was pretty consistent with what's in the neighborhood now, so I didn't want to, make something totally different.
All right, I wish there was a way we could make that two-sided and let the people see it.
I mean, want me to carry it over?
Yeah, perhaps if you could take that and put it over against the wall, and people can look at it that way. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so they're basically two-car garage, sort of neo-colonial looking
Yes, sir.
structures. Very, very common in town and in other towns nearby. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And if you can just go to the exhibit before that, take that one down. And just so that we're clear on the other, this is Exhibit A now we're looking at, which is I guess it's a Google overhead that's been enhanced with the drawing of the proposed subdivision. So where is the so-called veterans lot or veterans house lot? Oh, now you're mixing exhibits on me, fella.
Exhibit F?
Exhibit F, thank you. What is Exhibit F? You haven't been sworn yet, so I'd appreciate it if you'd sort of stand by. Mr. Palante, look at Exhibit F and just give us an interpretation, please.
You want me to go over to it just to?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, walk over.
So, this is room 38, Laurel Ridge. This is the standalone lot that's across the street from the, where it would be the 6 lots. So this would be the standalone veterans lot.
Right, as you come out of Laurel Ridge to the stop street, heading toward Route 38, it'd be on your left?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then the other lots would be on your right?
On the right, yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Mr. Singer, but questions came to mind.
That's fine. I'd like to call Mr. Renero.
You don't need me up here.
Thank you.
Swear affirm the testimony you give will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing.
Yes.
Microphone picks you up. Mr. Renero, would you please state your office address?
100 Essex Avenue, Belmar, New Jersey.
And what do you do for a living?
I'm a civil engineer and planner.
And would you briefly describe to the board your qualifications?
Yes, I have a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering from Drexel University. I've been practicing civil engineering for 29 years, 25 years licensed as a civil engineer, and I am a professional planner. I've been licensed as a professional planner for 15 years. I've testified before about 50 boards in New Jersey, including this board.
All right, before we go, does the members of the board have any questions about Mr. Renero's qualifications?
What is your name?
Sam Renero. You can call me Sam.
But it may be spelled the last name.
Renauro. I'm with SR3 Engineers.
Fine. Any questions from the board about qualifications? All right, Mr. Singer, I'm going to accept Mr. Renero as an expert in civil engineering, planning, and related matters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Renero, I'd like to have you put your engineering hat on for this issue, this part of the testimony. Are you familiar with the plans that have been submitted in support of this application for use variance?
Yes.
And were they prepared under your supervision?
Yes, they were.
And would you briefly describe to the board, you started, but would you describe to the board and members of the public what is being proposed?
The property is on Laurel Ridge Road and Route 38. It's bounded by the paper street of Sandra Lane that continues to Route 38, and on the south, residential, the R1 zone. The property is within the PO professional office zone, and it's a 4.3 acre property, including 7 existing lots. There is one lot, which we've called Lot 7, on the west side of Laurel Ridge Road, and 6 existing lots on the east side of Laurel Ridge Road. This application proposes to reconfigure the 6 lots on the east side of Laurel Ridge Road as part of a subdivision. The lot we've called Lot 7 on the west side of Laurel Ridge Road would be 6 units of veterans housing for disabled veterans. That would be a 1 building with 6 units. There is 12 parking spaces associated with the veterans housing, and the proposed subdivision also includes a proposed road which would allow the 6 single-family homes to gain access.
And with respect to 6 single-family homes, what are the approximate sizes of the lots for each?
They vary, but they're approximately 20,000 square feet.
And for what's being referred to as veterans home, what's the size of that?
That is also about 20, it's slightly under 20,000 square feet.
And the zone, you've modeled your plans with respect to a residential zone in the area?
Yes, we've modeled our plan that's submitted before you after the R1 zone. It's generally compliant with the R1 requirements, even though it's in the professional office zone.
And the R1 zone is the zone immediately to the south of this site?
Correct, it borders on this site.
Okay. Would you describe, with respect to the veterans home, the amenities that are being provided and how I think you have a proposed front elevation?
We do.
All right.
I think, Luciana, it may be better to present the architectural.
We can show it.
I think you can mark it right now, even if you can't talk in detail about it. Our next exhibit,
G.
Exhibit G. Please mark that as Exhibit G.
Because this is not an application for site plan or subdivision, that basically is my engineering testimony with respect to the overall configuration of both sites. I would like to ask that the developer of the veterans home come up and speak, and then we would present planning testimony. I'd call Mr. Romero back, present planning testimony.
All right, but let me ask my board members if any of them have any questions of the witness now, based upon what we heard. Any questions? Yes, please.
On the plan, disabled veterans building, is there any reason why if it's all for disabled guys, they only need 1 handicap parking spot, the rest all regular parking spots, would they all be handicapped?
Well, we don't necessarily designate them as handicap with the wider spaces, but they would all be suitable, and Mr. Luciano's indicated to us that generally that's overparked as far as how much they would actually need. The 12 parking spaces you see in front of you there does comply with the law and with the RSIS, but the number of parking spaces, making them all, we didn't necessarily think that making them all officially handicapped. We only do what's the minimum required and then they can arrange them, they can park however they wish.
And I see that there's 2 electric vehicle parking spaces. Down the road, if more vets wanted more of those installed, would that be a big challenge to them, or what would be their options to?
They can always install more. There would be no engineering reason why they could not.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Board members, please raise your hand if we have any. All right, so Mr. Singer, then we'll move on to your next witness.
Thank you. I'd like to call Luciano Bruni, please.
So, you swear or affirm the testimony you give tonight will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do. Okay, Mr. Bruni, try to speak into the microphone.
Okay.
Or share that if you can with council.
Sure.
Mr. Bruni, did you, at my request, present a brief outline as to the project that you intend to construct in the township of Hainsport?
Yes.
Show you the study. Is this what you prepared?
Yes.
I'd like to have this marked and distributed. Okay?
All right. Designate this as Exhibit F?
H.
H. We can distribute those, pass them around, Paula, I appreciate it. Mr. Singh, can you just wait until we get them passed around? If there's any extra, then hand them to council for some of the
Okay.
homeowners.
These are the prior papers that were handed out.
If you have enough copies.
Yes.
Yes. All right, now I know how to spell Nouvelle, now that I have this exhibit, Nouvelle. All right, this document, this exhibit that you've just identified is entitled Hainsport Disabled Veteran Housing. So why don't you address that, Mr. Bruni?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before you do, Mr. Bruni, give us some of your background. What's your educational background?
I have a Bachelor's of Architecture degree from New York Institute of Technology.
And are you affiliated with Nouvelle LLC?
Yes, I'm the managing principal.
And what does Nouvelle LLC do?
We're real estate developers. We get involved in market rate projects. We get involved in owner's representation, and also we also involved in affordable housing.
And how long has Nouvelle been in existence?
14 years.
And where are you physically located?
We're located in Cliffside Park.
And have you been involved in similar projects that's being presented this evening?
Yes, we have.
Where?
We've done a project in several projects in Bergen County. We've done several projects in Passaic County, several projects in Morris County for, whether it's special needs, low and moderate income, or disabled veterans.
And when you do a project, do you do the actual construction?
Yes, we're involved in doing the construction.
And once construction is completed, do you manage that project?
Yes, we manage it as well.
So you retain ownership, manage it, and after it's constructed?
Correct.
Would you briefly describe what is intended to be constructed on this lot?
So what you have in front of you is a colonial type structure that has stone as a water table. At the bottom, you also see a ramp that gives the ability for people in wheelchairs to go up a ramp to create handicap accessibility. You also have stairs for people that are ambulatory. The idea behind the design is to create a structure that will blend in with the community and also is not seen as a project that you would think would be for special needs or disabled veterans or any other, affordable housing type project. It blends in with the community and allows it not to be, tagged as such a project.
Mr. Bruni, with the dormers, it shows, to my look, as a three-story building. Is it in fact three or two?
Well, we'll build, units into the roof line. We'll build two units there, which will be probably more like one bedroom, and then the other 2 floors will have 2 bedrooms.
Okay.
Thank you.
Total 6 units?
Total 6 units.
Would you briefly go through your outline and indicate how you propose to operate and how you qualify the individuals for obtaining occupancy?
So we get our funding from the state of New Jersey, and that funding is for, not just for disabled veterans, it's also for disabled seniors or just also your other type of disabilities. That funding source provides not only the money for construction, but also operating costs. And we've done this in, numerous townships throughout New Jersey.
And for this project, who would be your tenant?
Disabled veteran, and that's usually, we work with various stakeholders, whether it be Catholic Charities, NJSOS Vets. We would basically be, obtaining tenants through those agencies that get vetted out by the state. And through the state, then we, make sure that their income levels are properly vetted out, and then they get, documentation through the state to verify income and also their stature that they can occupy the home.
Now, with regard to the vetting process, what sort of background checks are completed on the veterans?
We do background checks just like any other individual will get a background check. They get credit check, they get, also criminal, they also get eviction check. We check everything.
And as far as sources of income, do the veterans receive subsidies from the state?
They'll receive the subsidies from the state based on their income level. So they try to figure that out first, knowing what type of subsidies they should get.
And that's performed by DCA?
Correct.
Correct. And this project will be 6 units, as you stated, correct?
Correct.
It'll be very low-income housing?
Be very low income. Supportive housing.
Supportive housing. What sort of services are provided to them?
Based on the stakeholders, they'll provide, rental assistance, they'll provide budget management, they'll provide even, suicide prevention seminars they'll go to, and they'll also, sometimes they'll even provide transportation depending on the person's disability. But they'll provide various services, as well as they'll get them furniture, kitchenware, bathware, so when that tenant moves in, it's fully stocked, completed, so they don't have to think about anything else other than living in the unit.
With your experience, you've provided for 12 parking spaces on site. Is that normally what's required, or in what you've previously constructed?
Well, RSIS standards requires you that you have 2 spaces per unit, or it's actually less, it's 1.8 to be exact. So that's why it's overparked, and that number also provides for guests. So what we've seen in the past historically is, 4 or 5 cars are in the lot at any given time. But, we've never seen it where it's maxed out, people parking on the street, so we've never had that, we've never experienced that.
And should this board approve the variance this evening and subsequent site plan, how long does it take you to get up and running, so to speak?
Well, you have time to finalize your application with the state, and then you would have to get, your building permits and government approvals. And then once that happens, we would build, so that could take, anywhere from a year to, 15 months.
And are there individuals or services that are where people come into the property to perform services or on behalf of the veterans?
Not necessarily, no. That doesn't happen many of the times, because a lot of the veterans there are, they either have, hearing loss, or they'll have, have a prosthetic, whether it's a leg or an arm. They could have, vision loss in a sense and damage through, the wars, PTSD, things of that nature.
I have no other questions on this witness if any members of the board have.
Well, I have a few questions, but I want to let the members of the board ask questions before, and then I'll follow up. Any questions?
I do. I have a couple. What other organizations do you collaborate with, or have you worked with in the past?
We work with, let's see, who else we've worked with, in the sense of stakeholders and service providers.
Any organization?
We've worked with the VA, we've worked with Soldier On. We mentioned Catholic Charities, we mentioned NJSOS Vets. Trying to think who else we've worked with. Community Hope. So those are the organizations that we've worked with.
Tunnels to Tower, any of those?
Tunnels to Tower have placed people in our building, yep. The Elks we've worked with to provide furniture and things like that.
So obviously, we have Joint Base McGuire Dix Lakehurst. Prior to that was McGuire Air Force Base and Fort Dix. So obviously, having the base in such close proximity in Burlington County has created a high volume of veterans in our community. Is there an unmet need in Burlington County to provide veterans housing?
Well, South Jersey as a whole has a big need for it. Northern Jersey is not as bad. Bergen County, if you look at Bergen County, they don't have any homeless veterans. But the southern portion of New Jersey, there's quite a bit of it.
A bit of a need?
Yes.
Are you aware of other veterans housing in this area?
Not in Hainesport, but I know Tinton Falls, Soldier On did a project of 70 units, I think it's 70 units over there. But I'm not sure of any other project that's done just for veterans themselves.
So obviously, we have a state or a state mandated obligation to provide affordable housing. A lot of our communities, we look around, we see these big monstrosity, cookie cutter buildings being put up everywhere we go. This is obviously a creative way of satisfying a town's obligation that it's mandated to make. Are you finding that other towns are going with this approach for veterans housing or supportive needs housing? Are you seeing that as a trend, or?
I think the townships gravitate more to this type of project because, again, it's more woven into the fabric of the community. You don't notice it as much. It's not like in-your-face type of thing. So you would never know if you drove past that building that it was for disabled veterans. We did one in Midland Park that the people drive past there every day, and I've gotten comments to say, "What is that?" And I said, "It's for disabled veterans." They said, "We never would have known that." Because we don't just build it, the product that we build has hardy plank siding, has stone on it, stone veneer, and it's a real stone veneer. Blue stone, sills, shutters, vinyl windows that are, high energy efficiency. These building meet Energy Star requirements. They're not built to last 10 years. If these are built for 30 years because there's a 30-year deed restriction, they have to last.
So with most of the affordable housing, there's this misconception that it's, Section 8, you don't have to have income. With affordable housing, there are income requirements. You have to meet either low income, low, or moderate income. With this being a veterans, 100% veterans, and supportive needs, is there an income mandate, and do you find these individuals, these veterans, do they work? Are they working citizens? Do you find?
Most of them are. Some of them are not just because of their disability, but most of them are. But, this type of housing is, workforce housing. That's what it is. It's that simple.
Is there a mandate that they have to have employment or they have to have income?
No.
Okay.
They don't.
But they do have to have some form of income in order to live in these units?
Yes, they have to have some have to have some sort of income, whether it's through the VA, where they get a disability income, or, they have a regular job, but they have to have income to live here, for sure.
Thank you.
Other board members, questions? Yes, Mr.
You
Markon.
said going to the A, but you didn't really, is it two-story or single-story?
Well, I would have to say by zoning requirements, it's 2.5 story, because the roof line itself, when you're building into it, is considered a half-story. But I'm not saying I'm totally right about that, but I'll let the engineer, qualify that, but it's really not truly a three-story building.
So with moving into the rest of the neighborhood, do you feel that the ridge line of this building is going to be superior to the other ridge lines of the other homes?
It'll meet the height requirement for any other home. If it's a 35-foot height requirement, it'll be 35 feet.
So is there going to be an elevator in this?
No, it's not required by law. So you can have a disability, like I said before, like you can have PTSD, you can have a prosthetic, like we have someone that lives in one of our buildings that has a prosthetic leg, and they make it easily to the second floor, it's not a problem.
But there's going to be, there's a good chance there's going to be some vets that couldn't move, disabled vets that couldn't move into this because of the lack of an elevator that's similar to a single story.
They could, and they'll be put on the first floor, because the first floor is fully accessible. You're welcome.
These are fully ADA compliant?
The first floor is fully ADA compliant, and then the second floor and the upper level will be adaptable.
Thank you.
Is your other facilities in a neighborhood similar to this?
Yes, and we try to work with properties that are in a transitional zone, so that you'll have residential next door, you'll have our project, and then there's a commercial building next door. This is like that. There's a commercial building next door, you have this, and then there's residential around you. So it's a transitional type zoning. So on this lot, you can technically put a commercial building up, an office building, and that office building would probably have more of a traffic impact than this will. So, that's the trade-off, is you have a building that creates that transition from commercial to residential.
You had mentioned about disability veterans. You also mentioned something about disability senior, and then you threw a word in there, other. There was an other word. What is that other?
So other, I would say, your regular, disabled person, if I was disabled, I'm not a senior, nor am I a veteran, so I could be looking at a program to do that. Those are our three options. We chose to service disabled veterans.
So
And only
you're calling
disabled
this-
veterans.
You're calling this a disabled veteran, but you're also bringing in the other.
No, I'm not. This is a disabled veteran project. Maybe I'm not being clear, and if I'm not, I apologize. So the funding that we get for it, they give you various categories of populations you can serve. Disabled veterans, seniors, disability, or your regular disabled person. We decided to serve disabled veterans. That,
Yes.
okay.
Thank you.
You got it.
Ms. Kelly, you had something?
Yes, you said the residents, are they two-floor or are they three-floor for living?
No, there'll be one floor living. They'll be all on one floor.
All on one floor?
Yes.
Okay, another question. You checked a vision at the very, very beginning of your presentation. Are you checking their vision, and are they disqualified if their vision is not good? Or what did you mean by that?
No, I'm just saying that's a disability. That could be a disability. Someone has visually impaired, they can be visually impaired and still live here, and that's technically a disability.
Okay, thank you.
So, Mr. Bruni, any other questions? Although I have one. Sort of to recap this whole discussion. So the head of the household in each of these apartments must be a disabled veteran, and I assume that would be certified by the VA as such.
Will be certified by DCA.
DCA?
Yes.
Okay. Division of Community Affairs, Department of Community Affairs in New Jersey.
Correct.
All right. All right, and the veteran might have family members living?
They could have a wife and child, living with them. Could be a single mom with a child. We have a couple of projects that we just served single moms with children.
Right. All right. And finally, I just want to go back and clarify or recap the income requirements. You described them as low income?
Very low income.
Very low income. Is that a term of art In other words, it's a defined term, very low income.
Yes, correct.
And the level of income that is required to be accepted to stay in a house like this is what, if you know?
It scales, so if you have a single person, it's one number of 2, 3, actually 1.5. I don't know where they came up with that, but 1.5, 2, 3, 3.5, then 4. So it goes up the income as you have more people in.
And can you give us the range? Ballpark.
Yeah, I mean, it could be somewhere around, I know one person is probably somewhere around 28,000, and then 2 people probably bump up to like 34,000. And, again, there's so many different regions, I'm not sure what Burlington County would be.
Okay. How do potential residents find you, or to put it another way, how do you find them?
So we go on we advertise on the New Jersey Housing Resource Center, which is part of, the type of advertising we have to do with the state. But we also work with our stakeholders, and our stakeholders have good relationships with various agencies like the VA and Soldier On, and we have those relationships as well as Tunnels to Tower, and they have people that go to them, even like United Health. They even have people that come in, are disabled veterans that we get clients from as well.
Do your tenants sign a lease?
Yes.
And is that a sort of a standard lease that applies to all the buildings that you operate?
Yes.
Okay. How do you maintain the building, manage the building, deal with the tenants, maintenance, complaints by the tenants, anything else that goes wrong with the building?
So we have a portal that we created, which is called Appfolio. They pay their rent through that. They also, if they have a complaint, they put it in that portal, it gets recorded, and then we take that, complaint or that, potential issue, we go out and we deal with the problem, and we fix whatever, we need to fix. We do have a person that does property management in our organization, and they go around making sure every week that everything is good on the sites.
And you're responsible for external maintenance, internal maintenance?
Yes, sir.
Is it fair to say that the maximum would be 3 people per unit?
Could be 4, because you can have a husband and wife and 2 children of the same sex living in one room.
2-bedroom units?
1 unit.
Yes.
2-bedroom units?
Right. In a 1-bedroom, you just have a couple or 1 person, and that's it.
Okay. And this building is what's this, a mix of 1 and 2, or just all?
It more than likely will be a mix of 1 and 2, yeah.
All right, any other questions of this witness? Otherwise, are you finished with Mr. Singer?
I am.
Okay. And then you have your planner or your engineer?
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Don't go far, Mr. Bruni, because there may be other questions. I understand. All right, Mr. Rivera, you're back with a planning hat on.
I'm back. Yeah, so now I'll ask you to put your planning hat on. So now, you indicated that you're a licensed planner in the state of New Jersey, correct?
Yes.
And as a planner, what did you do in order to prepare your testimony for this evening?
I reviewed the municipal land use law, Hainesport Township ordinance, and my testimony this evening to justify the use variance on this project is going to center around 3 important things, and that is the intensity of the use compared to the underlying zone, the number of affordable housing units that will be dedicated to the town to assist in their affordable housing obligations, and the disabled veterans. Now,
Before you start,
go ahead.
can you put on the aerial and describe the location of this property in relation to the other? So would you describe the properties that surround this property?
Yes, we have, to the south, we have the R1 zone. To the east, we have the R1 zone, including the neighborhood.
South is the
Laurel Ridge development and Laurel Ridge Road and the development in the R1 zone.
North is top, right?
This is oriented north, yes. This is Exhibit C, I believe. It is oriented north.
Wolfington's is north of the site.
Wolfington is north across from Route 38. Route 38 is a divided highway in this area, so Laurel Ridge Road is a right turn in and a right turn out only. No left turns allowed and no left turns in permitted onto Laurel Ridge Road, or possible. To the right is the vacated street of Sandra Lane. You can see the cul-de-sac of Sandra Lane just south of the project. A paper street continues to Creek Road along the easterly boundary of the property to the right. To the left, we have Laurel Ridge Road, and then the affordable housing, the disabled veterans affordable housing is on Lot 7 across the street from Laurel Ridge Road. There's a commercial use to the left of that property.
And to the south is the,
And then to the south is the R1 zone, the Laurel Ridge development, that's correct.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No problem.
So,
The reason we're here this evening is for a use variance to allow a residential uses in a professional office zone. This entire property, including Lot 7, is zoned professional office zoning district. And the application, as you know, is for 6 affordable units and 6 single-family detached units on the easterly side of the property. Both variances will also be necessary that we will address during site plan. That will partially depend on the discussion of the layout and if there are any changes to that tonight. But the main purpose of tonight's meeting is for that use variance. An applicant seeking use variance approval must demonstrate that the positive criteria or special reasons in support of the use variance have been addressed. This project, I believe, does have an inherently beneficial use. However, there are 6 single-family homes that aren't necessarily by themselves a inherently beneficial use. Therefore, we've decided to demonstrate that the site is particularly suited for the site, and will promote the general welfare of the township, and present those special reasons this evening. First, we believe the property is particularly suited for the site because it is adjacent to the R1 zone in a residential neighborhood, and we'll be proposing buildings that you've seen this evening that are similar in style to the rest of the neighborhood. In addition, this is an excellent opportunity from a schedule standpoint and from a real estate standpoint to provide 6 affordable housing units to meet the township's affordable housing obligation. And Mr. Luciano discussed briefly that some of his projects are in a transition zone so in this case, between Route 38 and between the residences. We are showing the 6 units between the R1 zone and Route 38, a busy road, as we know. In addition, special reasons exist that advance the purposes of the municipal land use law. I'll go through those briefly. If you'll bear with me, I have to read some of these in. Section 2A, to encourage municipal action to guide the appropriate use or development of all lands in the state in a manner which will promote the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. This project includes a veteran housing component which meets a significant need for military veterans. If the project were an ordinance compliant use, there would be greater traffic and less green area, and as such, the property is particularly suited for the proposed use and therefore promotes the general welfare. Section 2H, to encourage the location and design of transportation routes which will promote the free flow of traffic while discouraging location of such facilities and routes which result in congestion or blight. The location of the project has easy access to Route 38 and promotes the free flow of traffic. Section 2I, to promote a desirable visual environment through creative development techniques and a good civic design arrangement. Now, I wanted to discuss in detail this one because the existing zoning is professional office, and obviously this applicant has no intention of proposing office on this property. I'm not sure it makes sense anyway. However, as a planner, it's important for me to compare the existing zoning and what could be built on the property to what is proposed as part of this application. The professional office district allows 70% impervious coverage, which means hardscaping, in case you're not aware, meaning that there could only be 30% green area on the project. This proposed application would have less than 30% impervious coverage. And of course, a larger impervious coverage means larger stormwater basins, larger problems with that, with those type of issues. I think there's some discussion about having more green area from an environmental benefit, from an aesthetic benefit. So that's an important distinction between the proposed application this evening and a by right development. In addition, I prepared a study, and a 32,000 square foot office building is feasible on the property without variances. That would include 157 parking spaces and obviously a giant stormwater system. In addition, per the Institute of Traffic Engineers, the residential development will produce approximately 120 daily trips on a daily basis. That's probably overstated when it comes to disabled veterans. A 32,000 square foot office building would result in more than triple that amount. So my conclusion is that the benefits of veteran housing and the less intense development compared to a by right outweighs any detriment of the project. Next, I'd like to discuss the negative criteria, which is also required to justify the variance. The granting of variance will not be a substantial detriment to the public good because we just talked about the intensity of the development. By really any measure, the intensity of this development would be less than a by right development if fully developed. In addition, this project is proposing buffers along the southerly property line to help minimize the impact to neighbors to the south. Mr. Taylor has been very kind to provide additional suggestions that would push the proposed road you see on the plan further to the north and increase those buffers more than what's shown on the plan. We will be happy to present it if you wish, but in general, during the site plan, we will be showing a plan that meets Mr. Taylor's recommendations that we thought were excellent. The grant of the variance will not substantially impair the intent and purpose of the zone plan and the zoning ordinance because the development is because the project is located adjacent to the R1 zoning district. We talked a little bit about the transition zoning that the 6-unit of affordable housing will provide. In addition, an important distinction here is that this project, if it were only 6 single-family detached dwellings, 1.2 affordable housing units would be required, so they would probably require to be rounded up or some sort of contribution, but the number is 1.2. This application is providing 6. Those additional affordable housing units will help the township meet their affordable housing obligation, which Mr. Singer talked about at the beginning of our discussion this evening. I think that's an important distinction. Finally, to close, we talked about the intensity of development versus the by right use. We talked about the 1.2 versus 6 affordable housing units. But I think the most exciting part of this application is the fact that we're providing housing not just for veterans, but disabled veterans. And I'm struggling, and I have been unable to come up with a more beneficial use than something that provides housing for disabled veterans who are struggling.
Any other questions? If any members of the board have any questions?
There probably will be. So members of the board, any questions on this last little bit of testimony?
Since the disabled veteran housing is going to be limited to very low-income veterans, how are they going to access public transportation?
How would they physically access it?
Yes, sir. They'd have to cross Route 38 and get in front of the Wawa, and you'd have pretty high turnover considering how many people get run over in that intersection. And there seems to be no way of going eastbound on 38 for them to access public transportation.
There's no way to go eastbound?
Well, they could walk, but I don't believe there's any sidewalks there. And I don't know where the closest bus stop would be going eastbound. I think they'd have to go westbound on the other side of Hainesport Mount Laurel Road. So access to public transportation to me is a big issue.
I think this development is intended more for cars That's more the purpose for this development?
Some very low-income people don't have cars.
And there is sidewalks on Laurel Ridge Road too.
Well, then what I do too.
Please, in the audience, we can just respect the witness and the board member and anybody else who is asking a question. Thank you.
That's my issue with that. I am a veteran, fortunately not disabled except perhaps mentally. To me, that is an issue. Having access to public transportation. And if they don't have a car, there's no shopping nearby. Closest thing is up close to the edge of Lumberton. It just doesn't make sense.
Bradley, if I may, call Mr. Brady, who's pretty more experienced in that issue.
Most of the residents that we have do have cars. Whether they're disabled, they have cars. Whether they're disabled or not, they do have cars. And it could be, their better half, if you will, that will have a car. So they'll drive them. So most of the projects that we have, most of the people in them have cars. And there is access to most counties. I can't say Burlington has this, but there are counties that have the small buses that you can call up and say, hey, I need a ride to a doctor's appointment, or I need to get groceries. The county provides that bus service, they come in, and they take them to where they need to go. So I'm not sure Burlington has that, but I
They
know
do.
Bergen.
Well, on that point, can you touch?
Sure. So my experience as a director of senior services for 15 years and working with the county, I'm on the Community Development Board. There is a service for Burlington County residents through Senhan, which is a contracted, coordinated service through the County Office on Aging. They do provide direct transportation to medical, food, any type of appointments like that. They also provide for vulnerable populations food services through the congregate meal sites. They have deliveries through Culinary Classics. Jerry Jerome's company has that contract for all of Burlington County. That is a service, and that is a conversation that we had with the other community on Creek Road, was a concern about public transportation. It was the same response and sentiment, in this area. We're more of a rural area, not an urban area. The need for public transportation, the use of it is a lot less than in the North Jersey towns. But I have worked with New Jersey Transit, and they are always willing to install transportation centers, which we are doing with the Creek Turn Park. We were successful in getting that approved once we're ready to pull the trigger on it. So that is something that can be coordinated directly with New Jersey Transit.
Thank you.
Gus, does that cover your?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
And then just to follow up on that, our ordinance does require sidewalks along the frontages, so these residents would be able to get to Route 38 if the town was successful in getting a bus stop at Route 38. They'd be very, easy for them to access.
But I don't believe there's any sidewalks along 38.
Not currently, but if the town was successful in getting a bus stop in front of this facility, there could be sidewalks, and sidewalks will be required at the time of site plan approval to make that connection in the straight eastbound movement.
Okay.
As Paul said, the Burlington and Senhan operate a paratransit system and another system to provide transportation for folks like this.
Yeah.
All right, other board questions? Nothing? Didn't mean to leave you out. Any questions?
No, I just have to say, I have a disabled husband, and I agree with Ms. Costco. The Burlington County really does have fantastic opportunities for disabled people who no longer can drive. It is online, they come to the house, they will take you grocery shopping, they will do most anything that is required. Most disabled people who can't drive in today's society will call this type of public transportation compared to necessarily not standing at a bus stop. My husband is in a wheelchair, and that is not something that he would sit necessarily at a bus stop, but he would call Sehan and other buses. So with that, Burlington County is absolutely wonderful to their disabled veterans, again, regular disabled people. things such as that. So I think that that is something that is not necessarily as high priority because we live in such a great county that provides those services to anyone, no matter of any type of income.
I think they also provide Uber and Lyft
Yes.
assistance as well.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Some of our stakeholders, like we've had it happen to some of our residents where someone had to go for a job interview and, the stakeholders were able to give them, Uber cards and they can go back and forth for their training. And they gave them enough that they can do that for 2 weeks and go to their, job interview and their training. So, there are ways of getting it done, but, we've been real successful with the county providing the bus service, and most counties that we work in have it, so.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bernie. Mr. Singer, anything else by way of testimony?
No, Mr. Chairman, that's my case.
So, Mr. Singer, I'm going to give you an option. Either make your closing remarks now, or wait till I open it up to the public, get that feedback in, and you may have to answer some of those questions, who knows? And then I give you the opportunity to make your closing remarks after that. Which do you select?
I'd like to reserve and make my closing remarks.
All right, fine, that's no problem.
Thank you.
All right, I think I'm going to take a 2-minute break, really 2 minutes, because we're at 9 o'clock, and we have one more matter on our agenda tonight, and I'm not rushing anything, but I want to use the time up as best we can. And then we'll come back for questions from the audience. It's going to be orderly, no more than 2 minutes, you only get one shot at speaking, so you don't go up and have to do it again later on down the line. And we'll try to move it along as quickly as possible.
2-minute break.
So 2 minutes.
As I get back.
9:01.
All right, so we're going to have public comment now. We're going to open it up to public comment. So what I'll do is you just raise your hand, and I'll go row by row or section by section, whatever. And I'll have you come up. You don't have to raise your hand right now. Put your hand down.
Mr. Chair, I represent the group, and I do have questions for the applicant professionals and the applicant himself.
You do? Okay, well, I tell you what we can do. We can either have the general population ask their questions first, and then you can go, I'll give you the choice, or you can go first.
I'll go first, and I'm sure whatever I miss, they'll pick up, if that's okay.
You'll go first, all right. I don't know how you're going to do this, but does that microphone work, that portable? Why don't you take the portable, so you can...
Might I go to the podium?
Now, the witness is going to be at the podium, so we got to do it with 2 mics. So Marty, yeah, make that available to council. I'm sorry, I regret to have to say this, but your last name again?
It's Brittany DeBoard, and I'll put my clients on the record as well.
Okay, fine.
Do you mind if I use the podium? I am a millennial, and I'm tired of my competitors.
No, I don't mind.
Okay.
You can use the podium. And I'll have the witness use the microphone.
Thank you so much. It died? I'll move out of the way for the,
All right, so you have to who do you want to ask questions?
I think I'll have the applicant, come up first. And just for the record, if I might read my, clients, into the record, I represent the following.
All right, first of all, you've given your appearance, you represent a number of people. How many?
In opposition, I'll read them off. I don't have the count if someone wants to take count, but I represent the following. Josh Pinto, of 404 Laurel Ridge Road. Joseph Seaman and Denise D'Antonio of 2402 Craig Drive. Gail McClure, Bruce McClure of 2214 Craig Drive. Ted and Cheryl Urbanski of 2402 Creek Drive, Jared and Christina Berkey of 2214 Craig Drive, Joseph and Wendy Heim of 2410 Craig Drive, Joseph and Christine Hone of 2411 Craig Drive, David and Linda Camerata of 412 Laurel Ridge Road, and finally, thank you. Finally, George Koltner
Is this on?
Is it?
Doesn't sound like it, but you're on the other one, so use that.
It was on.
Just to avoid feedback. Excuse me. And George Coulter of 407 Laurel Ridge Road. And again, my name is Brittany DeBoard, and I represent these folks. They all live in the area. They are opposing this application. No one disputes that veteran housing is important. The question is it proper for this area? And our client has many concerns, and they submit it's not, unfortunately. So if I could
Let me ask you a question on that point. Your clients, just so we all understand, do they oppose the application on account of the veteran component, or do they oppose it on account of the housing component?
So I think there are questions.
The answer
One is
could be
opposing
both.
veterans specifically. That's not the opposition. The question is safety. They're concerned about their property values. They're concerned about traffic. They're concerned about noise. They're concerned about by the way, particularly additional traffic at night and on weekends, which would not be the case if an office building was built there per the zoning ordinance. Let's see, what else? I believe those are the primary concerns, but frankly, we're dealing with two uses that are proposed that are prohibited in the zone. The single-family residences are prohibited in the PO zone, the professional office zone, which is where the zone is. And the multi-family housing is prohibited in both the zone in which the site is located and the R1 zone, which is what the applicant is asking asking this application to fall under. So the multi-housing property it's not permitted anywhere in this area. So I think my questions to the applicant and their professionals will kind of parse out some of these concerns a little bit more, and I think it's important for the board and the public to understand what the applicant's thoughts are on these matters.
Okay, good. Mr. Palante, you're up first. You've been sworn before, so
Yes.
she'll pose the question, you answered the question, I'll enter into it if I need to.
I'm pretty loud too, so I shouldn't need
Would
a
you-
microphone.
We could do a little dance too, whatever you like. So good evening, Mr. Palante, thank you for coming here. Would you first help us understand how is your ownership of the property going to work? Once, assuming if you do get approval today, right, you're getting approval for uses on basically two different properties. There's the residential subdivision and then there's the veteran's home. If you receive approval for these uses, you move forward with your contract, you own the property. What happens next with the veterans' housing? Are you going to sell that property off immediately after? Is the developer going on the property, developing the site? Who owns this property ultimately?
Right, so ultimately, I would own this property.
Okay.
If, if it were approved, I would own this property, both sides. And then, we would then go to the next phase, which would be, the site plan approval. Because obviously this is zone commercial, we have to now get zone residential to be able to proceed with the site plan in front of the board.
Yeah.
So that affordable, the veterans house, that land there would then be dedicated to the veterans or whatever is decided after the fact.
So once you get site plan approval, the veterans' housing gets built, is the property changing title from?
Yes.
Okay. I guess.
Counsel, I think the testimony was, and I'm not testifying, I'm merely recapping testimony, that when, he's the contract buyer, as I understand.
Of course.
He's,
Route 38, have you looked at any studies in terms of the traffic on Route 38? How much traffic is passing by Laurel Ridge Road every day?
No.
Do you have an understanding of the history of accidents in this immediate area?
I've been informed that there's been some accidents in this area.
Do you have any concerns that more cars slowing down to turn onto Laurel Ridge Road would cause more accidents on this major highway?
I think This is a very low volume of traffic that would be added to,
Members of the audience, I'm going to ask you again to be respectful of the witness and your own lawyer.
What about turning, so both entryways for these developments are located on a curve.
yes.
Have you looked into the ability of people to turn on that curve and vision impairments and the like?
Yes, we have to comply with the site distance requirements,
Okay.
and we have proper site.
Based on what?
Based on, ASHTO has requirements on how far you can look in both directions and make sure you have proper site distance, measured 18 feet back from the road, looking left and right.
Is there going to be stop signs on these properties?
Yes.
Okay, but they're not shown in the plans, but what, there's going to be stop signs on both entryways?
Yes.
Okay. It looks like there's some vegetation along Route 38. I assume it's aesthetically for the residents. Is that right?
That is our intention, and I think we would, during site plan, address this in much more detail. Our intention at this time is to preserve that 20-foot strip of existing trees.
Okay,
along Route
so
38.
you would keep the trees that are there?
The 20-foot strip along Route 38, and then whatever we can in that 20-foot strip on the south side as well.
Okay. Do you know what kind of trees those are?
No.
So do you know their survivability if you take away most of the forest and just leave that 20-foot strip?
We would have to make sure that any excavation near those trees would not damage the trees. So if you excavate within the drip line of a tree, generally that does create some damage. So we would have to do a survey individually of each tree and make sure that the excavation and the work and the trenching that we do would not damage those trees or kill those trees. So we would be careful and selective on how we do that.
And you said it's a 20-foot buffer, vegetative buffer.
That's shown on the plan now. We plan on increasing it based on Mr. Taylor's, on the south side, based on Mr. Taylor's suggestions.
With the increased ingress and egress to these developments, are we concerned at all about visibility with that vegetative buffer being right at Route 38?
Visibility?
Right.
For
For example, folks turning on to Route 38.
Yeah, so we have to meet the site distance requirements measured by ASHTO, 18 feet back from the cartway, based on the speed limit. And we'll show that on our site plan. There's a triangle where you can't have any vegetation inside that triangle, looking left and right.
Okay, but we can't see that
I'm not
on these
anticipating
plans,
any
right?
problems with that.
Okay. So does that mean that the houses closest to Laurel Ridge Road won't have the benefit of the vegetative buffer?
No, as long as, that triangle that I'm talking about is only at the stop sign where the proposed road meets Laurel Ridge Road, and the same thing for where the affordable housing driveway meets the road. They would be to the left and right, it's generally close to the road. There would be no trees in that area. However, trees are permitted as long as they're limbed up. Trees are permitted in those triangles. We can look at those individually as we go. With our goal is to preserve as many trees as we can. We do know, though, that we want to make sure that we do that in a way that does allow the tree to live and not just save them without a plan.
Mm-hmm. Is there a triangle, line of sight triangle planned for the Laurel Ridge Road, Route 38 intersection, for lack of a better term?
We would show that as well.
Okay. Who would be responsible for maintaining that vegetation to make sure that it's delimbed, or the word that you use to ensure the line of sight?
Well, we haven't gotten that much detail as far as, but there would be a homeowners association for the 6 single-family units.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I believe that's all I have for traffic. No, I have more for you, though. The single-family residences, do we have an estimate on how many cars per residence there will be?
We are required to also show 2 parking spaces for 2 cars, and these will have garages. So we estimate 2 based on our size.
Okay. But Can someone, there's some photos of the houses. Can you find them? There.
This is Exhibit E.
Thank you. Put that up, please. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Doing a great job.
Okay, so in theory, so there's some houses with 2-car garages, correct?
Yes.
So if you have a couple and say a teenager, you could have 3 cars. Is that the case? Should we account for that when we're talking about the density of this housing and the ingress and egress associated with the cars?
Well, they're allowed to park on the drive, outside of the garage.
Right. So does this increase your estimate for the amount of traffic coming in and out of this road?
No, parking is unrelated. Number of parking spaces is unrelated to the traffic count.
Okay, my assistant, can you take the houses down? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Showing F again?
Yeah, for the record, we're looking at Exhibit F. The drainage basin. The drainage basin is adjacent to Laurel Ridge Road. It's at the corner of Laurel Ridge and Route 30, is that right?
Yes.
We're looking at that big?
Yes.
It's a huge, do you know the dimensions approximately?
It's about 20,000 square feet in area.
Does that comply with the most recent stormwater requirements, the BPU manual?
We have not designed the stormwater basins, but they will definitely comply with the new requirements.
But that large basin, I think it's too large for those new requirements. I think you need to split it up. Do you agree?
No.
Based on what?
Based on, there's a 2.5 acre maximum, and we will be under that.
You'll be under that. Do you know the topography of the area? And are all of the entire portion of the proposed application, is it going to drain towards that drainage basin?
Some will drain toward, what our attempt will be, and again, this is not the design, so I have to reserve that fact, but what we will have to do is, where the existing drainage is going, we have to reduce it to that direction, and then some of it is going south onto Laurel Ridge Road. There's an existing inlet there. We have to reduce what goes to that inlet as well to meet all the rules that the DEP has required all towns to meet. So we will meet those requirements for water quality, water quantity, and water recharge.
Well, have you done any of those studies?
As I mentioned.
So we don't know that yet. We don't know that the applicant can meet the requirements. Is that right? Because we haven't done the studies.
We know it will work. We can make it work. Yeah.
How do you help us understand? Because right now we're dealing with a bifurcated application where we don't, as you know, we don't have the benefit of the site plan application and the review. It's my opinion that we can't really understand the full extent of the use until we know some of these details. So how do you know that this thing is going to work?
Well, I've been doing this a long time, and I've never had a design where I couldn't make it work. They say, oh, we give up, we can't make this project work because the stormwater basin doesn't work.
Well, but
That's never
sometimes
happened.
structures need to be moved around, for example, right? To accommodate.
No, of course, and I think for sure there's going to be some changes to this layout, and we've already mentioned that we're going to move the road further away from the southerly property line. So there already will be changes, which is the normal course for a site plan approval.
So are those houses, those structures closest to Route 38 going to be even closer to Route 38?
Yes.
Is there any residential home in this area that exists currently along Route 38 in this immediate area?
Not in this immediate area, no.
Yeah, there is.
So how do these houses fall within the character of the zone that's completely commercial if these are the only residential houses that exist?
That wasn't our testimony.
Well, help me understand.
It's adjacent to the R1 zone, and we believe it matches the character Mr. Flante recommended regarding the size of the buildings, matches the character of the R1 zone to the south of the Laurel Ridge development.
But this application is not in the R1 zone, correct?
Correct.
It's in the professional office zone. is residential permitted in the professional office zone?
Well, that's the purpose of our application for
Right.
use variance.
Right,
Which,
right.
you know,
Yes, yeah.
We've been through that.
I'm working on a transcript, Mr. Renaro. Do you know what is permitted in the professional office zone?
Yes.
And what, for example? I don't expect you to memorize the list, but,
Office, professional office, doctor, medical, conditional uses allow for banks, assisted living, and those type of things are permitted in the professional office zone.
are you sure assisted living is permitted in the zone?
Conditional use.
Okay.
I read it before this hearing, so I may have read it wrong.
And the R1 zone that you're trying to match, which is adjacent, that does not permit for multifamily housing, correct?
Correct.
So
When I say
regardless,
trying to match, I think we're using it as a guide, you know,
Right.
we're not trying to change the zoning to R1, that's not our application, our application is use variance.
okay. There's an auto body shop directly across from this application, is that right?
Yes, Worthington is across the street, I don't know.
What,
The school bus.
School bus. Yeah.
Yeah, Wolfington's.
it's a bus depot?
The-
Maybe it's a
I think the-
question
I
for,
think the board can take notice that it is a school bus sales and storage depot.
okay, all right. Are folks going to want to live next to a school bus storage and sales depot in these almost $800,000 houses?
That's a question.
It's true. That's not a question for you. Okay. Let me see if I do have more questions for you. Okay, you testified as the planner as well, right?
Yes.
Okay. The inherently beneficial use argument for this veterans housing, which is a separate use from the single-family residential, would you agree with that? These are two separate uses?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes,
okay,
yes.
okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
And you're familiar that the MLUL defines inherently beneficial use, right?
Well, I think my testimony was that although I believe it's inherently beneficial use, we're still going to provide testimony as if it were not, and we provided the positive and the negative criteria in our testimony.
So the positive criteria you apply to both the veterans home and the residential?
Yes.
Okay. But you also submit that the veterans home is inherently beneficial, is that
I
right?
believe it is, but again, as far as this application, we provide our testimony, even if the board or if there is an opinion that is not our testimony and our proofs, for assuming it was not inherently beneficial.
Okay, so the assumption is it's not inherently beneficial.
I mean,
What's the basis for your, you're telling us that the veterans home is inherently beneficial. What's your basis? Because it sounds like there's going to be a holding company LLC that's not nonprofit, that's going to sell to Nouvelle LLC, which is also not nonprofit. So,
I can't think of anything more inherently beneficial than providing housing for disabled veterans.
Counsel, in addition, aren't you getting into legal questions of the definition of inherently beneficial?
well, I think, so the inherently beneficial use is a defined term. It includes specific things like hospital, schools, that this doesn't fall into. So I actually think that the board would have to determine, as a matter of, fact, whether or not this thing is inherently beneficial. So I'm trying to kind of glean testimony.
Our testimony was assuming it was not.
Okay, fine.
You could be right if the board decided to vote on the basis of inherently beneficial, but he's presented the alternate.
I don't think I'm even arguing with you. I think we agree.
Okay.
Our testimony was that it was not inherently beneficial. We know that the six single-family detached homes are not inherently beneficial, so that was not.
Okay. So the question then still remains, if this were inherently beneficial, we wouldn't need to go through the positive criteria, but now we are going through the positive criteria. The question remains whether this site is suitable. These vets they're going to be looking out onto Route 38 and onto this bus depot, is without any public transportation and with 12 parking spaces and no room for circulation of any type of vehicle transportation. How is this site particularly suited for veterans that have medical issues that need access?
Well, I think because it is a residential use and it's a transition from Route 38 into the residential zone, I think that's part of the reason. In addition, I think that this is a good opportunity for the town for a project proposed by a private developer to help meet their affordable housing obligation.
Right.
Counsel, anything else of this witness?
Let me see.
Sure. Take a minute, but let me know.
Thank you. Are you familiar, we talked about, there's Creek Road housing. I admittedly am not familiar with it. Are you?
Not only from what some of the things I've heard. Not-
Just wondering if there's...
Not intimate.
Okay, all right. Are you a traffic engineer, Mr. Renner? And the height of the veterans home, I think there was, actually, strike that, that's testimony that the architect can provide. I believe those were all my questions for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I assume you want Mr. Bruni next?
I would like him.
Mr. Bruni, would you please come up? You're still sworn. We follow the same procedure.
Bear with me while I gather my thoughts.
Take your time, counsel.
Thank you for coming tonight. Mr. Bruni, you're going to be the architect for the veterans home?
No, we're the developers. We hire a separate architect to do that. I said I have a bachelor's of architecture.
So you are not here as an expert in architecture, correct?
Nope.
Do you have any say in the architecture of your proposed development?
Yes, I work hand in hand with the architect.
Okay. So you can answer these questions, as someone who's going to be engaged in the architecture and design of this property, correct?
Developer.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
You indicated that there might be 6 families living in the veterans home. There are 2 apartments on the 3rd floor, but the veterans home is going to fall within the height requirements of a 2-floor home. What is that 3rd floor going to look like?
Third floor will be 2 apartments that will be built into the roof line with dormers. The dormers will provide proper light and ventilation that you would need per the code. And will be access to a stair from the 1st floor all the way up.
Okay. So are the ceiling heights going to be uniform throughout this building?
They'll meet the construction code of New Jersey, IBC code of ceiling heights for apartments.
Okay. What about windows in those 3rd floor apartments?
Again, there'll be enough light and ventilation to meet the code per the IBC code.
What about, if there are 6 families living in this apartment building, what about recreational opportunities? Is there going to be any recreation on the site?
It's treated just like any other home. I mean, you have green areas and grass around the property. That's the reason why there's a lot of greenery around it. So if people want to go outside and play, they can do it just like any other residential home. They don't get treated any differently.
Well, looking at this site plan, actually, my trusty assistant, can you put up the site plan with the road, like that shows the road behind the... And what exhibit is that? We're looking at Exhibit A. So you have to the left of the veterans home a commercial property. Do you know what that is?
It's a doctor's office.
Okay. And then it's like a side yard between the veterans home and the doctor's office. Is that going to be where the recreational area is?
Again, it's a property of a lot of greenery that they can, play on between the two buildings, they can play in the front, they can play on the side, just like if you're living in your own home, you have children that play in the front yard, it's no different.
Well, there's a parking lot facing the residential, there's a parking lot on the side of the lot that's closest to the R1 zone.
Right.
The rest of the lot is closer to Route 38, and you're suggesting that the families will play in that yard.
Yeah.
Do you have any plans for patios, anything like that, grills?
No.
Do you have any plans for ensuring the safety of the folks at the veterans' home and surrounding areas?
I can't ensure anything.
Well, are there, for example, going to be alarm systems, security systems?
Again, we treat this just like any other home. Not everybody has alarm systems in their home. Not everybody has security systems, cameras. We will have cameras on site for sure. There'll be cameras on the outside and in the hallways.
Well,
That we'll have.
you indicated that you're going to provide support services for these folks.
Correct. Those support services that's different than assuring, whatever is stated. Support services are, again, budget management, tenancy replacement, suicide prevention seminars, things like that. Those are support services.
But no security.
We will have cameras on site.
Okay. How is the front door of the property going to be locked?
With a intercom system, and it has an electric strike that when you go to that door, has a camera on the door, you punch in your code and you enter it.
And you indicated, and this is said with all respect, you indicated that some of these veterans may be disabled due to PTSD. Are there other emotional, mental disabilities that some of your vets deal with who are living in your residences?
They could, but we can't discriminate against any disability that they may have. They need to be placed. If they're disabled, they can be placed in a home.
Okay. Do you police in any way the guests that come and go from this site?
Again, we have security cameras that we can check, and we have an on-site property manager that goes there weekly. We don't have someone standing there and watching everybody, but that's how we manage the property.
Is anyone watching the security cameras? Like, are they hooked
Yes.
up to
They're
a
all hooked up
on-site
to our
person?
phones. The property manager has it hooked up to their phone. I have it hooked up to my phone. It's recorded.
But you're not paying a security system to monitor
Yes, we are.
this site?
Security system is the camera system that we pay through a security company.
Correct. The assumption, though, is that if something bad happens at the site, someone has the ability to go back and look at the camera.
Yeah, we have,
right?
it gets recorded, yep.
My question is there anyone monitoring the site in real time, looking to see who's going in and out, for example?
No, just like any other home, you don't have people looking and monitoring who's going in and out of the home. It's no different.
But, okay. Do you have medical professionals coming to your sites, the ones that are up and running?
It depends. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but very rarely.
Do you ever have police encounters that happen at your sites that are that are running?
Once in 4 years, just like any other encounter at any other home. You can have there's domestic disturbances in a regular single-family house. It's no different.
You indicated that you perform background checks on the veterans. Do you perform background checks on their family members?
We only perform the background checks on the people that are on the lease. That's who we perform the background checks on. So if it's husband and wife, they both get a background check.
Understood. That background check, does it include, now you would agree that in the military matters, many legal matters, even criminal matters are dealt with internally, right?
I'm not going to agree to that because I don't know that.
Okay.
Well,
It's speculation.
Do the background checks include those internal military matters, or is it just running the state report on the person?
All I do is I do a background check on them for credit and criminal, and whatever comes up on criminal. Also, I forgot to mention, DCA also does a criminal background check when they get the application. So there's a second, round of checks. So the state of New Jersey also does.
But that, you don't know if that includes the military history, correct?
Again, that's just speculation. I don't know if it does or it doesn't. I don't know.
What in a criminal background check would prevent you from accepting an application to live at one of your residences?
Domestic violence, a person that's doing that, other issues like, a sex offender, things like that.
Did you testify that there was going to be an on-site manager?
No, I said that once a week we have someone that comes by and takes a look and makes sure everything is fine.
And when you say make sure everything is fine, what does that mean?
Make sure the catch basins are clean, make sure that there's no debris around the site, make sure the lawn's being cut, make sure that the snow is being removed, make sure the inside of the property is being cleaned properly, make sure there's no damage, make sure that the gutters are clean, make sure that the links of the vents are cleaned out. That's what we do.
No one checks on the well-being of the veterans?
No, we don't have a right to do that. Again, you're treating it like it's a person that's different from a person that lives in a normal house. They're treated all the same. It's fair housing.
Just trying to figure out what support services mean. Yeah.
Not a problem.
Okay.
How you doing, counsel, on your list?
Doing good. We're going through it. I think this is the last witness.
It's the last witness that was presented, so it is the last witness.
Correct. Do you place unhoused veterans into your housing?
Do I say that question again?
I think there was some discussion that many veterans, especially in South Jersey, might be unhoused. Do
You
you?
mean homeless?
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, we house homeless veterans, we house veterans that are in other homes that can't afford to rent. We house everybody as, again, it's all fair housing.
Right. How long are your leases?
1 year.
I have a very practical question, which is where would your dumpsters be on the site?
It's located right on the site plan over there, right at the end. So if you look at the driveway, you go straight, that's where the dumpster is.
Okay. And how often do you have trash pickup?
Once a week for trash and once a week for recyclables.
Okay. And is a garbage truck going to be able to fit into that parking lot?
Yep. They pull in forward, they back out into a spot, and they go out.
But what if there are no spots available?
We're overparked. We meet the ITE rule. The ITE rule is actually more, it allows for less parking, in other words, for the count, so it's like 1.5. So really, we only need 9 spaces, we have 12. RSI requires 1.8, we have 12. There's a charging station there. Actually, the charging station allows you to reduce the amount of parking spaces because you have charging stations. So we're overparked.
But there could still be a full lot.
It can also be 1.
That is true. In your experience managing these properties, do you get concerns from surrounding neighbors that their property values are being reduced?
There's no evidence that that's true. No evidence.
But do you get concerns from neighboring folks?
We get concerns from neighboring people, sure, on every project that we get approved or denied. But again, there's no evidence that says that that's true.
Does your management company get complaints from neighboring folks in the other properties?
One time we have, and we took care of it right away.
What was that complaint?
It was the cartons, when the people moved in, they stacked the cartons too high for the paper, so someone
It was the
over
only
there-
complaint.
Only complaint.
And your company is not a nonprofit company, correct?
No, for profit.
Are there any studies that exist that say that these properties don't reduce the property value of the surrounding
Not
neighbors?
that I'm aware of.
So there's no studies either way?
Again, not that I'm aware of.
You just have to wait and see.
Council, how are we doing?
You're doing good. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Like to see you wrap this up.
I'm wrapping it up. I'm getting,
Covered every question I could imagine, and then some.
thank you. I'm just trying to think, because I had a question at the tip of my tongue. All right, I have no further questions for you. Thank you very much.
Have a good evening.
All right.
Thank you, council. Exhausted line of questions. Thank you very much. Council, I'll talk to you about this as well. I'm going to take questions from the audience now. But there's going to be a rule. We don't need to repeat anything that your council has covered. So if it's just a rehash, we don't need it. You don't need it. We don't need it. We've heard it. So with that caveat in mind, and a limit of 2 minutes, and I hope you don't take 2 minutes, but there'll be a strict limit of 2 minutes. All right, Bruce, you seem to be, yeah, I understand, but this guy is anxious to say something. All right, would you come up, please, and give your name and be sure?
Bruce McLaughlin, 33 Easton Way, Hainsport. So when the attorneys, oh, yes, sorry, I forgot, I should know better.
You swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes. So, when the applicant's attorney came up to the podium, he cited two compelling reasons to approve this project. One is affordable housing. I dispute that claim unless something's changed. I thought Hainsport was fully compliant in round 3 and filed and received a declaratory judgment for the amount of houses. Do we still have a mandate to provide more affordable housing?
Something has changed.
Okay.
As you said.
Okay.
We can address that at an appropriate time.
Okay, but the other thing was the inherently beneficial use, which, as planning board members know, creates a whole criteria for an approval, but the attorney seemed to dispel that, and I think the applicant agreed that this, the veteran's home wasn't an inherently necessarily a beneficial use.
Well, I don't think he quite said that. He said that it could be deemed to be an inherently beneficial use, but that they weren't seeking approval based upon that prong.
Okay, so my last comment was, I kind of thought things would, that it would go that way, and I wanted to just remind or make a comment that there's some case history on inherently beneficial uses out there. One is a Dr. Sicca versus Wall Township, and there's basically 4 criteria that case described, where the positive impacts have to far outweigh the negative impacts of approving an inherently beneficial use. I'm not going to ask for an agreement on that, but it's all over the internet. It's on anybody's cell phone. They can look it up. Dr. Sicca versus Wall Township. He was denied an inherently beneficial use because the negative impacts far outweighed the positive impacts of the use.
Bruce, you're on at time.
Okay, the last thing I want to say is, being a past member of the Township Committee, we worked very hard on our master plan. It's been filed numerous times that this land was to be zoned office, and I see no reason to change it.
Thank you. Next, lady in the back, standing up, come forward. You know the rule, 2 minutes, don't repeat.
My name is Kristen Howe. I live on 2411 Craig Drive.
Kristen, do you swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Absolutely.
Go.
Okay, I'm a concerned mom of 3 daughters who lives on Craig Drive. And my house is right here. This street is, cars are speeding down my street every day. And now you're going to be adding more of a bigger development with more traffic. Are you all aware that there is a bus stop right here, right here, a bus stop, where my child and 4 or 6 other children walk to every day. And now you're putting this traffic down my street where my child or another child can get hit. And I've seen a basketball been run over by cars. So, I'm a concerned mom. There are 24 children on our street on Craig Drive. The builders' homes are beautiful, I've seen them. I'm not concerned about the veterans, I'm concerned about that traffic and the people that are going to be coming into and creating more of a traffic hazard for my family and everyone in this room. Because have you been on Craig Drive? Have you been driven on Craig Drive? Do you see the traffic? I stand out there every day at the bus stop with my 11-year-old daughter. My 15-year-old daughter stood at that bus stop. My 18-year-old daughter stood at that bus stop. And everyone speeds right down our street. And now, these people will not go out 38. They're going to go down Craig Drive to go to 38. And now you're creating even more of a dangerous hazard for my family and everyone else's. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Who else? Guy in the back with the hoodie, come on.
I'll wait until he gets home.
Joseph Howe, 2411 Craig Drive.
2 minutes, don't repeat.
You swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do. Several years ago, several members of our community, we came here and opposed the building of the bank. It was safety, safety, safety. We lost, got steamrolled. Bank's been robbed several times. Suspects parked on Laurel Ridge, Craig Drive. There was even one incident in pursuit, crashed on Craig. Mass hysteria throughout the township. So I testified then, I spoke the truth. Well, that was the truth, it was a safety hazard. So talk about value of our homes. Got a bank, got a major intersection, Route 38, banging motorcycles. You got the noises is out of control. You're gonna put veterans there with hearing issues. I mean, it sounds like gunfire, fireworks. I mean, everybody knows, common sense, right? Look at the increase of housing. Look at down on Mount Laurel. It's probably going to be 20,000 people from 295 to 206 within 5 to 10 years, right? So more traffic, and you're going to put this property here, the Veterans Home, right next to 38, right there at the intersection. 2 people, pedestrians been killed, multiple accidents. We hear them late at night. Fatalities, serious accidents, people medevac. Fact, get the stats from state police. Nobody denies, everyone has a heart here. There's not one person in this room that doesn't love the vets. They serve our country proud, and we love each and every one of them. Everybody here, pro-military, pro-police. Congratulations, 19 years, you serve our community. Not personal. I think that development's great. I'm glad you're doing it. They're going to build and, make it, I want it to be you. But low-income housing, very low-income housing, term, get creative. There you go. Here's the family. You're going to hear a dumpster once a week. That's reality, right? So nobody opposes like, we approve your professional, your attorneys. That's great. You did everything the township requires. 10 more seconds.
Time.
We appreciate that. It's just, let's face it, value, very low income housing. We don't know what this is. So just when you vote on this, bear in mind, and I'm not opposed, I want to help the vets. We all want to help. I speak for everybody. Let's work together to find a better location for these people.
Thank you.
Town effort. Thank you very much.
Next. Lady on the aisle, sweater? Yes. 2 minutes, same rules.
Janice Ludden, 14 Heather Lane.
You swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do. I'm not part of the lawyers group. And I'm going to repeat one thing because I think it's the heart of the matter, and that is it's only been a little over a year and a half that we went through a master plan. We came up with what we saw as a vision for Hainesport, and this was deemed as a corridor for where Hainesport could put office space and commercial income. So to me, I think we need to really consider deeply changing it so soon after we looked at our plan and what we thought would be good for all of Hainesport, not just today, but going forward. But I'm also very concerned about how close residents are moving to Route 38. Yes, it's R1, and there has to be a barrier at some point where R1 stops, because Route 38 is incredibly busy, and that traffic starts 5 o'clock in the morning. And I live significantly further. I live in, on Heather Lane, which is in the Creek Woods development, but you hear it, and there's trucks, there's more warehouses going down there. And I think to stick veterans and to say we're doing them a service so close to Route 38, where the air quality, when you're less than a quarter mile from a major highway like Route 38, the air quality is poor, the sound is significant, and it is a dangerous area for people to be pulling off of 38 there. I know I pull into Creek Road, and I'm always surprised when somebody's turning into the bank or somebody's turning into, that road there, because you're just expecting people to continue on to Creek Road. So those are my concerns,
Thank you. You get the reward for the exhibits.
So give an extra minute.
Joshua Pedito, 718 Lower Ridge Road.
You swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truthful truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
All right, you know the rules.
I do. Did the cards. Or 404. Oh my gosh, yeah, sorry. Nervous here. It's my other, so, all right. My 4-year-old daughter's bedroom window will have a very nice view of the parking lot and the dumpster. I want you to understand that. It's not the vision that I had in mind when I moved to Hainesport. I'm originally from Riverside, New Jersey, predominantly very low income, rough neighborhood, and I had a lot of, I would say, uphill battles. With that being said, I am conflicted, right? Veteran care and recovery is ever so needed in this country. I can't define that. But having transient residents with 1-year leases with the possibility of a carousel of people, that level of security kind of diminishes with that say something, see something rule, right? So we can't question or monitor our own neighborhoods. We can't question I would say, the intent of passerbys. I want this to be really considered. Now, the main point is that I believe that the target, or maybe the overall goal of Hainesport is, and this is speculation, I understand that, but population density. Have you guys considered, has the committee and the neighborhood considered population longevity? And this can compromise that. I just want to keep that in mind as far as what our vision is for this community. So it's my overall statement. Thank you.
Thank you. White shirt.
Name, please.
Theodore Bansky, 2407 Craig Drive.
You swear or affirm the testimony you give tonight to be the truthful truth, nothing but the truth.
Absolutely. Actually, I came here tonight with blank paper, but after hearing everybody's testimony, I had to start writing things.
Still got 2 minutes.
The first thing I got to say is that I never was served, by the way, by Mr. Singer. I never got a certified anything, and my property is within a 200-foot radius. And when my neighbor sent me the thing, is why I'm here tonight, if you read his letter, it talks about a group veterans home. It doesn't say squat about disabled vets, but it talks about a group veterans home. Now, to address one of the fellows who talked about Northern Jersey always taking better care of their vets, which I don't agree with, because we have a beautiful facility in Vineland. You look at the group home they have up in Bergen County, it's monitored 24/7. There's someone there 24/7 monitoring it, because it's a group home. There's transients come in there. No one here has talked about that. They got cameras, they got on call. If you need somebody, call me. That's not, if you're gonna have a group home, have a secure group home to protect the people in this room. We don't object to the veterans. We object to the way that they're treating the veterans by not allowing a safe place to live. So if you wanna put it there, make it a safe environment. As far as these other homes, I don't know if we have an objection to that, because I think it probably falls within the criteria, but it's going to impact the general environment of Laurel Creek, 38, and add to the unsafe conditions out there. The only other question I really have, did anybody look elsewhere for facilities to accommodate this construction? I mean, why stick something like the Veterans Home, group home, and I'll use that again, that's Mr. Singer's word, group home, in that postage stamp spot, which is a really unsafe environment. In closing, I just want to say, again, Vineland has a great spot. Bergen County, they may have a well-to-do, but their facility is no better than what we have in Vineland. Thank you.
Thank you. Lady in the back with her hand up.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Weirs from 2310 Craig Drive. Right hand.
You swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you.
We have 24 kids on our street who are constantly riding bikes, playing hockey, enjoying each other. We have families that are related to each other. They walk down to each other's houses. Despite all the traffic that is on our street, and I've reached out to the township committee before about the safety hazards. We just saw Laurel Ridge repaved with the crosswalk put in and the aprons put in, and my kids are so appreciative that they can ride right up onto the sidewalk safely. But now we're looking through the lens of this project, and I realize that we're putting our kids at more of a risk. And it doesn't seem like we're doing a great service to the vets either. Hearing the testimony tonight and hearing that it's ADA compliant on the first floor only, but not on the second floor, that's problematic. Hearing that there's not going to be nursing staff, who I assumed would be coming in and out of that parking lot, adding to the traffic that's going to be caused. I thought that they would be there to help the vets, but they're not. They're not going to be there. So why are we picking this property? Why aren't we picking a better property where we can put them close to resources and we can give them what they need in their houses so that they meet success, so that they grow and get stronger, and we can celebrate them in our community. This isn't the place for it. Right across the street, we're going to add more homes. The homes are beautiful. I've seen them in Mount Holly and in Hainesport. However, those homes are going to be squished on those properties. They're going to be big homes. They're going to be $800,000. But if we squish them in, we're cutting down more trees, which is going against the tree ordinance, which the spirit of the tree ordinance is to help support the stormwater being properly funneled, filtered. But we're taking them down, and we're going to create a really big storm basin, and it's going to attract mosquitoes, and we're going to have more of those planes flying by, and our kids can't go outside to play because the mosquito repellent is going to be coming down. There's just so many things that are caused by this project. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other hands? Well, I have one, looks like that's you're the last guy, so come on up. Maybe the next to last. Okay, I see you.
Christopher Mark Antonio, 2211 Craig Drive.
Your name again?
Christopher Mark Antonio.
You swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do. In regards to the safety aspect that we've been talking about just about all night, if this project were to get done and there's more traffic and just congestion in our neighborhood, what's going to be done to the existing infrastructure with the sidewalks, the streets, the stop signs, the speeding through the neighborhood? These are things that are valid concerns that we currently have, and you're just going to topple on top of, so what is that going to be? There needs to be speed bumps put in. There's got to be a repave of our road because we have sinkholes left and right, swallowing curbs in front of my house. We do not have egresses at my son's bus stop, which is the next intersection down. So we're stepping up and down on a sidewalk. I'm not 100% opposed to the single-family homes, but as far as cramming 6 families into a disabled, veterans group home, that just sounds like it's a bad idea. find a better place for that. You know, we're putting up warehouses left and right in Hainesport. You can't find a spot for a group home where it's more recreational area. You know, the gentleman said they're going to offer services for suicide prevention. You're going to put them right, they can go walk out in the middle of traffic if they have to be going to a suicide meeting. Like, you know, I just don't understand why the placement right there has to be it. You know, is it because you're going to get a variance for one by doing the other? You know, we really need this should be two separate projects, and, you know, the group home really should be a hard no from anybody that lives in Hainesport right there. Find a better place for it is what we would ask.
Okay, thank you. One more.
Cassandra Pudito at 404 Laurel Ridge Road.
Swear affirm the testimony given will be the truth, the truth, and the truth.
Yes. I don't have an eloquent speech like the rest. I just wanted to touch on a few things that I didn't hear. One of my concerns, like they said, this is a postage stamp, and I'm not sure if you're all aware, I mean, maybe you might be the only one, but it hasn't been raised. There's no sewer going to this area, because George and I, we both had an exception to not join the sewer because it doesn't reach our homes. So we were exempted to have septic there. So how are you going to fit a septic tank on these locations? And where is that going to, leach field going to go?
Mr. Singer, you want to address this one? I haven't called on you before, but have you asked your engineer to address this? Because it's an engineering issue. It should be pretty straightforward.
We intend on extending the sanitary sewer main, the public main, then we would not have on-site leach fields.
There's your answer.
Okay. So would that then benefit our homes that it doesn't reach?
I suppose if there's an opportunity for you to hook up to it, and only the developer could answer that question.
It's just a consideration. I'm sorry?
That's up to Mount Holly Sewer Authority to make the decision.
Right. So that was just one of my biggest concerns, because I didn't understand how you would fit a septic tank there. And then I guess the only other concern is again, like they said, you're so close to the traffic. How do you prevent children from kicking a soccer ball onto Route 38 and chasing it and becoming another fatality that we have so many of at that intersection?
All right, thank you. All right, I'm going to close public.
There are people online as well.
There are people online?
There's 3 individuals online. I don't want to forget.
You want to go? Okay. You're then the last. I think that's, and then we'll have to deal with the people online too. So we'll do that.
I'm Dave Camerata. I live at 412 Laurel Ridge Road.
Swear affirm the testimony given will be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do. I have 2 concerns. One is that I'm concerned about safety. You know, I listened to, you know, there's not going to be any on-site security there. Once a week, somebody's going to be coming to the vet home. And I'm concerned about addiction and mental health issues and people walking through our neighborhood and, you know, potentially causing some issues for the kids and for, you know, my family. And the other issue that I have is, you know, somebody said there's no evidence that this will have a detrimental impact on property values. Common sense tells you it will. You know, I don't believe it, you know, that there's no evidence of that, but, you know, that's my opinion.
All right, thank you. All right, we have anybody online that's unmuted? If anybody wants to ask a question, they should unmute, and we'll go one by one.
Nobody's unmuting.
All right, their opportunity is closed. All right, we're going to close public session at this point. Mr. Singer, you opted to defer, and I'd ask you to address the issues specifically, obviously, with regard to the D1 variance and the positive and negative criteria that you're relying on.
First, before I do, I'd like to just clarify some of the testimony
I may have misspoke and described this as a group home. It's not a group home. It's 6 individual apartments maintained by 6 individual families. There's a comment that, there's transients. There are no transients. So because you live in an apartment under an annual lease, doesn't mean that you're in and out annually. New Jersey has very strict anti-eviction laws, and literally, if you're a tenant for a year and your lease expires, you basically have a life estate in that apartment unless you violate the terms of your lease or you don't accept reasonable changes. So even though they're annual leases, it's not that people will move in for a year and move out or be required to move out. The law doesn't permit that. So, but the standard in the industry, as most of you probably know, is you rent on an annual basis for 12 months. With respect to traffic, yes, there will be a increase in traffic, but as the planner testified, the permitted use on this site is an office building, which would generate 3 times the amount of traffic that this proposal will provide for. So regardless of what is built, there will be increase in traffic. It's just, you can't avoid it. But like I said, and as built, as right, it would generate 3 times the amount of traffic that this proposal would generate. So as far as proofs, I believe my planner has testified, and I believe that this is an inherently beneficial use, but he argued and presented in the alternative the positive criteria for both the veterans home and the 6 units in support of establishing and complying with the township's Mount Laurel third round requirements, that the benefits far outweigh any detriments. We believe that the negative criteria has been met, that we are designing the site for the 6 residential units in accordance with the R1 zone, which is immediately adjacent to the south. And in fact, as far as values, Mr. Palente is embarking on a rather expensive project with the intent of building homes at sale prices that are comparable in market value. He doesn't believe that this veterans home will have any detrimental impact on values. He is building 6 new homes and expects to get market rates. So he believes that there's no detrimental impact on the project. I believe that the negative criteria has been met and that the application deserves your approval. Thank you.
Fine. All right, that closes the matter. Now, is there someone
No,
belatedly?
no, I'm sorry. There's no one on.
All right.
My apologies.
All right. Bob, we have, first of all, we have a use variance, and we need 5 votes, correct?
Try to do this a little better, but.
Yeah. Would you, for the board members, would you frame the issue for the board members?
Yes.
Assuming a board member sought to make a motion to approve the requested variance, and then if a board member wanted to make a motion to deny the variance, give the board members the options and how many votes are needed.
If there's a motion to approve and it doesn't get 5 yes votes, you don't need to make any other motion. So that's what I would recommend, that the motion be to approve. The only thing before you tonight is a use variance. Are you going to grant a use variance? There's a lot of talk about the design of the subdivision, the design of the parking lot, and the design of the veterans site. That would come later if the use variance is granted. So I think you need to focus on whether or not you're going to grant the use. Now, in order to grant a use variance, the applicant has to show you that there are special reasons why it should be granted. Now, one of their arguments is that this is an inherently beneficial use, and that takes care of special reasons if that's a valid argument. I think in this particular case, that argument is questionable because I would not be convinced that the Veterans Building carries the day for the whole rest of the project. The whole rest of the project is a residential subdivision. I think that's a debatable question, whether that satisfies the special reasons for the entire project. It certainly, it could be inherently beneficial for the veteran site. You would have to decide whether you think that carries the day for the entire project. The other thing they have to prove is that they satisfy the negative criteria, which means, and this, even if it's a special reasons case, they still have to satisfy the negative criteria. And what that means is that there is no substantial detriment to the public good from this project, and there is no substantial impairment of the intent and purpose of the zone plan and zoning ordinance. So they need a use variance because it's zoned office. They want residential, so they have to satisfy the special reasons, unless you think it's inherently beneficial project as a whole. And they have to satisfy those two prongs of the negative criteria, that there'll be no substantial detriment to the public good, and it does not substantially impair the intent and purposes of the zone plan and zoning ordinance. That's what the municipal land use law says, and that's what they're required to do. I don't have any opinion one way or the other because I don't vote, and it's not my job to give you an opinion on the validity of their application. I'm just giving you guidelines of what you need to consider when you vote.
Thank you. Appreciate that. All right.
Are we allowed to provide any other board questions or comments at this point?
Yeah, actually, I was going to do that, Jason, I was waiting for Bob to wrap up. And then I want to have a time for board questions that maybe didn't get answered before or just got thought of. Questions also to our solicitor on the charge of the law that he just gave us. And any other comments that the board wants to make. So it's an open series of topics. And so let's just go around, and obviously, Paula, you go
Sure.
first.
Are we allowed to ask the professionals questions still?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And they're still under oath, and they can come forward and answer.
Okay, I just had some follow-up questions for the planner on some of the questions. So I don't recall, well, maybe this is also for Mr. Bruni, but the testimony was that it was going to be a mix of two-bedroom and one-bedroom, not all two-bedroom, correct?
Yes.
So then it wouldn't be a maximum of 12 spaces, using the same formula of a mix of two and one?
Correct.
Correct. Okay. Is there anything that would prevent an existing home in that R1 zone that is generally they're 4 bedrooms, 2 bath, from allowing 4 sets of adults to move in, which would generate, is there anything that precludes that in the law, already granted approved homes that are existing in a development to become a rental unit, and then in essence have four sets of couples living in a 4-bedroom home now?
No.
So there would be no stringent requirement or criteria that anybody existing in our community would have to meet that this potentially is expected to meet?
I'm not aware of any.
Okay. In terms, I think that's all I have for you. Thank you so much. And I think there are some valid concerns that were presented tonight by the community, and these are concerns that we've heard before as a board. We heard a lot of similar concerns with the Creek Road property. Again, the premise is that every municipality has a constitutional obligation to provide realistic opportunity. One of the echoing concerns from the community across the street was, how is this going to affect our property values. And I think I remember Mr. Del Duca answering that there has not been any empirical data or statistical data or anything that shows that there's been a change in property value. I would suspect that that would be the same in this situation as well. Correct, Mr. Bruni? Have there been any studies on this?
In regards to property value?
Yes, and how it affects,
Not that I'm aware of. I have never seen a study on that.
is this something that is a concern that you hear in other communities that you build in?
I've heard it in other communities, sure, just because they hear affordable housing, they think that their property values go down. But
I mean, it's a concern because a lot of people don't know what affordable housing is, and there is a drastic difference in Section 8, affordable housing, groups home, things like that, so, okay. And I understand there are a lot of communities that did not have that concern in Hainesport. Quaker Court, which is off of Bancroft, the 40 senior homes also off of Bancroft, Friendship Farms, and even way before me, the Lakeside Creekside community, because they didn't have to build affordable homes.
You know, I don't mean to break your train of thought,
Yeah,
but the law and the requirements on builders creating affordable housing has changed.
Yes.
And it used to be that you could just put a pot of money in to essentially buy out your obligation, but you can't do that anymore.
right,
And so any builder who builds now has to actually build
yes,
affordable houses, and you can't shift it to another part of town by
Right.
putting in some money. So that would affect, this and other developments that are ongoing.
right, and that was a mandate with our affordable housing agreement, which was adjudicated, and we received a settlement on. We were mandated that any development moving forward must provide 20% affordable housing. You cannot do in lieu of it, they must absolutely be built. So that was part of the settlement agreement, which the municipality approved and authorized and vetted. But going back to on July 2nd, this board, we had a public hearing on amending the master plan, the housing element and fair share plan, we had to do that as a result of our third round obligation and our settlement agreement. And during that hearing on July 2nd, Mr. Gillespie came to the board and explained, what the purpose was and what the board was tasked to do. And, he explained that we settled with Fair Share Housing Center, and I'm going to read this off, so I'm going to take a minute. I think it's very important.
This is from one of the exhibits that we've had marked?
This is in minutes from our board on July 2nd. I'm just simply reminding the board what we did and
That's just
what we
fine. Just
heard.
for the record, I want to
Yep.
know what we're reading from.
Yeah, it's not an exhibit, it's just a recap.
Right.
So we settled with Fair Share Housing Center and settled our affordable housing obligation and responsibilities and how we're going to achieve them. I think it was in August, and we conducted a fairness hearing in front of Judge Covert, who approved the settlement hearing or settlement agreement. From there, we worked towards a housing element and fair share plan and would incorporate the necessary components to meet our number, which is 197 for our round 3 obligation. We are 5 short. We approved that this past January. The Joint Land Use Board adopted that housing element and fair share plan as part of the master plan. As a result of that, in February, Judge Covert granted us a conditional judgment. There were 2 conditions to that judgment. One was the adoption of a new affordable housing ordinance, which the committee introduced in April. The board reviewed it, found it consistent with the master plan, and it was adopted in May. The other condition of that compliance that we had within our plan, 5 units allocated from Legacy Treatment Services. Not to go into too much detail, but in that allocation of 197 affordable housing units, there are moderate income, low income, and very low income. You have certain split amongst these numbers, and Legacy accounted for all 5 of our very low income components. Legacy bailed, just as testified earlier. They were a legitimate opportunity, could have been deed restricted, state funded, and they were not forced by their own state agencies to deed restrict and give us those 5 existing units that currently operate next to Bruni Shopping Center. We undertook to find other means by which to meet our obligations. We did that with Haynes Mobile Home Park. We're doing that now with that project. They're going to be coming in 10 units. They set aside and we negotiated 3, they only needed 2. 5 more units are needed for supportive special needs housing. We've been in discussion with Habitat for Humanity, which was part of our first and second rounds. We try to find solutions as well with the provider of affordable veterans housing. In order to continue and meet our obligations, we need to amend the settlement agreement, which has now been amended to remove legacy and substitute it in place of that option. Similarly, therefore, the housing element and fair share plan need to be amended in the same way. You have the proposed amendment to the housing element and fair share plan in front of you, us, the board, on July 2nd. We had that in front of us. On page 2, under the heading additional mechanisms, and that are on page 3. We are asking you to adopt this. At the last meeting, the committee did adopt a resolution recommending this to the Joint Land Use Board as the means by and still to meet our constitutional obligation. The Fair Share Housing Center has agreed to this change, and the court special master has also agreed and recommend this change. These are only the changes that are likely for the Fair Share plan. So at that time, the board did vote for that change, and that's what this change does. It accomplishes our 5-unit loss. This actually gives us 1 more. We could potentially carry that forward to our 4th round obligation. This project is exactly what the committee, what the town has moved forward in the Fair Share plan and what this board approved and adopted on July 2nd.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Other questions from board members? Mr. McKay.
If I could ask no, I'm sorry, I'm not sure, it's a question, I don't know who it will go to, but I got actually 3 things I wanted to bring up. On the veterans, just a question, would it be possible to compromise? I agree with the woman that said kids playing and all 38 right there. Would it be possible to swap the parking lot, move the building and the play area, the children farther away from Route 38? Would that be an option at all?
I think during site plan, we can look at all options. My initial reaction is that puts the driveway very close to 38. That would be a safety concern. But during site plan, we can look at all options. If it's adding more buffer, if it's moving a little closer to 38, but swapping would put it only about 30 feet from 38. That would be a concern.
And, sorry, if I can ask you one question. Being a veteran myself, I'm all there, you know what I mean? I asked you earlier, and I kind of still feel like, 3-story building for disabled veterans, and the only first floor is, for use with somebody that has a walking problem. And now we have 2 floors, which are 4 units, that are going to cause a hardship for our veterans that. So I guess I'm asking at the end of the day, the young buildings that you build, I mean, do we have more veterans that have a problem with stairs, disabled vets that would have a problem with stairs versus vets that don't have a problem with stairs?
We have 2 veterans out of the approximately 6 projects that we have that are either a walker or a prosthetic. And the one with the prosthetic lives on the 2nd floor, he prefers it, and the one with the walker lives on the 1st floor. Other than that, everybody else is ambulatory.
Am I allowed to ask for a turn?
Yes, absolutely.
I really feel like, as somebody that's going to have a vote on this, I really feel like I want to have 2 separate votes. I feel like I'm being cornered. I feel like I'm being cornered to have these 2 different projects adapted into 1 vote. That's just me personally. I'm not, I'm just speaking for me, and I'm struggling. I'm a little nervous about this vote because I feel like it should be separated.
One doesn't happen without the other.
It's 2 separate items.
That's the way the applicant has presented it.
Are we allowed to express this to the applicant, that, that the board feels like we're in vision code with 1 vote for 2 separate projects? Is that fair for the board to express that to the applicant?
that's the applicant's purview as to how they want to present their application. I think they want to present it as a single application.
Yeah, I think the applicant does wish to present as a single application because I think one complements the other, and the proofs necessary for each are overlapping. So I think it really needs to be have one vote.
I mean, after you guys have listened to some of the concerns there,
I think some of the
have you moved in all in the direction of understanding of how I feel right now?
Oh, absolutely. Well, no, I understand, and listen, I appreciate the concerns as well. But, some of the concerns, I think, will be handled during site plan. Some of the concerns are existing conditions on a road where there is traffic and I guess some speeding, and I don't know if there's speed bumps on that road or not. But there, and there's some of it's enforcement issues too. So, I don't believe that this project will generate, a considerable amount of traffic that will add to what is already existing. But I think it's enforcement that really the residents are complaining about. There are children, listen, we all have children, and they play, and so it's a need to, I guess, control the traffic better than what it's being controlled now, but it's not by reason of this development.
Any other questions?
Yes, I got a question on the traffic. I know we don't have a traffic person here, but has anybody really saw what 38's all about right now? I mean, you got the apartments in Mount Laurel, and you got the big, huge apartments next to Walmart as you go east, I guess. The lane that you'd have to turn into to this Laurel Ridge Road is called a deceleration lane. That's an acceleration lane. Those people down 38 always get in that third lane. They're flying to get in front of everybody else. So I have a problem with that. Secondly, I'm disabled. I broke my neck. When I pull out of this area right here, when you look at this road, it looks great. It looks like it's straight. It's on an angle. So now, for me to try to turn my neck to see what's coming, I got to close one eye and hope that, I make it out there. Now you're asking disabled veterans to come out of that place. It's an issue. The traffic out there is an issue. And I'm from the area. I live on Easton Way. And people coming through our neighborhood, 50 miles an hour, 35, 45 miles an hour, they're flying through there. You come in on 38, the speed limit's 50, that's going slow. It's 60 to 70 miles an hour. And that's a problem. And that deceleration lane is not. It's an acceleration. People that are late, they're flying in that lane to get ahead of people. And to be pulling out of that area in a small area where you're going to put 6 families in the small little area, when you got 6 homes here with a whole bunch of people that you could put in. So for me, if we had a traffic expert, people blowing lights all the time right now, more than ever, and the traffic is insane. From 5 o'clock in the morning, and when you're sitting out there at 5 o'clock at night, it's packed. And I'm telling you, it's an issue, because I've been through this stuff, and I've been through some serious accidents, 2 of them. Not my fault, but it's a concern for me.
Are these issues that can be addressed and should be addressed during the site plan process? Can we require a traffic study? Can those be conditions of the site plan application?
If I may, my entire argument was that this application should not have been bifurcated because the use is so intrinsically tied to these issues that we're talking about that the applicant is saying that we would put off until a site plan. It's clear that these concerns are intertwined. And I don't think it's proper to ignore the testimony about the traffic, about these other things that will also be addressed at site plan.
Okay. There's two questions on the floor. Wait a minute. With regard to the traffic study, is it the opinion of our professionals that if this D1 variance was approved and you went to site plan, that a traffic study of some type could be required as part of the site plan submissions.
Our ordinance would require that to be addressed. The board could also expressly make that a condition of approval. And I think to that point, the applicant's prior testimony that was, while traffic may be a concern, a permitted use would generate 3 times more traffic. So I think that was Mr. Renaro's testimony, but if the board remains concerned, that could expressly be set forth as a condition that I think the applicant could then respond to.
Mr. Chairman.
Paul, does that answer your question about the traffic
Yes.
study? All right, now the other question, Mr. Singer, you want to address
I
that?
just wanted to say that the applicant would accept as a condition, which this use variance would be conditioned on the site plan, and so the site plan would require traffic study, and the applicant would agree to that.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm still not understanding, is it the whole project for the veterans, disabled veterans, or is it a separate home for the veterans, disabled veterans, and then separate single-family homes?
Mr. Singer, you can address that, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
the project is a home for the veterans on one lot, and then 6 individual single-family home, market rate homes for sale to the public that are not disabled, individuals.
Mr. Singer, why don't you use that one chart that has the concept plan on it to point out what you're talking about? It B or C, well, that's a hard one to see. I would pick the one you have your hand on. That's right.
Exhibit F, the veterans home would be, I guess, to the west of Ridge Road, and then the market rate homes would be this way.
Are you clear on that?
Yes.
Okay. Other questions? I encourage them, but no. Okay. Council, I'm going to do you this favor, and I'm going to let you have 2 minutes to say anything else you want, or you can pass on it.
I think we've heard here today some very legitimate concerns, not just about traffic generation, but about the location of these projects as it relates to traffic in the area. We're not just talking about ingress egress, we're talking about Route 38 and how busy it is and how dangerous it's proven to be. In these past few weeks alone, you have an applicant who is, quite frankly, bootstrapping six expensive single-family homes that are going to be sold at market rate to a small 6-apartment residential property for these veterans. We're going to be incredibly close to Route 38. It's not going to be a happy place for anyone. And as someone testified, one of the members of the public, you have significant residential area. R1 is a huge zone as compared to this small professional office zone. The applicant hasn't explained how they've looked through R1 and haven't found anything residential for these folks to live, a more proper place. Instead, we're sticking these guys right on 38. It's improper, the location is improper. The zone is zoned for commercial office space, and that's what the county intended. And it should stay that way.
All right, Council, thank you. If there's no other questions, and I don't see any hands suggesting that they do have any, it's time to vote. So at this point, we have a proposal by council that if you are in favor of granting the variance, you know how to frame the motion. It's been framed by council. So at this point, I invite a member of the board to make a motion they deem appropriate. Or not.
I make a motion to approve the use variance
All right, for the reasons outlined by council?
for the reasons outlined by council.
And for the, supported by the evidence that's been produced through testimony and exhibits here today.
exactly and deferring the site concerns and challenges to the proper procedural time, which is during the site plan application.
Okay. And I'll ask you a question on your motion, but I want to see if I can get a second first. Do I have a second of this motion? I'll second the motion. And I have a question on the motion. We talked about the various issues that would be subject to the motion, that we would adopt the motion, and other conditions would attach to the motion that would have to be satisfied. Do you incorporate those conditions in your motion?
Yes.
Assume you do. Yes, okay. All right, do I have any questions on the motion, which has now been seconded by members of the board? Speak now, please. I see no hands, I see no questions being sought.
Mr. Chairman, just to expand that any approval would be conditioned upon the applicant entering into a developer's agreement with the town relative to compliance with UHAC for the affordable units, the bedroom mix, the phasing of the project, and all other orders of the court and settlement agreements such that these units would then comply and qualify to meet the township's affordable housing obligation.
You better stated the condition issue that I sort of garbled, but thank you. All right, we have a motion, we have a second, no questions, therefore I'm going to call for a roll call. We need 5 votes to approve. If it does not get 5 votes, it will not be approved.
Ms. Cosco?
Yes.
Mr. McKay?
Yes.
Mr. Bradley?
No.
Mrs. Kelly?
No.
C. Murphy?
No.
Mr. Navarita?
No.
R. Murphy?
No.
Okay, motion fails.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Sorry. You wanted Yours is going to be yours is oh, you have, no, I know.
I think they're going to...
The planner's letter. I don't want, maybe. That's why I said
One in.
Anyway, so the next meeting, I won't have an answer.
Hang on a second. Hey, Paula? Paula?
The other Paul.
Can we see you with your calendar?
Me being a vet, I just didn't like the fact that they tried to piggyback on the veteran home, and they were doing the veteran home out there as the forefront. But
Verizon?
she got six houses that are $700,000.
And then I would have a homeowner that I want to put on first. We don't-
I hear, because I'm at least I hear.
I don't remember what year.
Yeah, no,
It's a,
okay.
that's,
It might not be,
Oh, no, I thought you were.
right, might not be going. That's what they're deciding.
What's that?
of course, we didn't get to it tonight.
Joan.
I'm on first, which is,
It's a pool.
yeah, it's
They
the,
might not be going, it might be pushing it back to a later date.
You know what? Last time we had this discussion
I don't know.
Just wait. You've ate already? All right, just have a seat in or out in the car, just don't leave. Just wait in the car.
That we have to do certain things for certain days. If I don't get something from you, you know what? I got it in.
And then 2 car accidents.
Oh, you need me to say,
And they
give
want
you
roll
something?
call. What do you need?
No. I need to get
To see.
You need to get a result on your application.
Then I'm not gonna spend.
I go.
My thing was, and I was very astute to what they were saying. And my thing was, they made it appear that the whole project was for disabled veterans. And it wasn't, it was just that one spot with six families in this area right here. No, and they're doing six
Let's do that right now.
houses that are 700,000.
January,
homes.
One group of people interested in another. There are crazy people in market rate homes. There's domestic violence issues that go on in market rate.
and it's 7 o'clock.
No.
We have the reorg.
It's at 6, it's reorg starts at 6:30 and then the meeting.
Or immediately following.
I travel up and down Hainesport, Mount Laurel Road all the time.
All right, let's get this, all right, we're going to continue the meeting because we have a couple of other things we got to get done, and it's late. I have Mr. Delia here, who's counsel for the applicant for the Rife property, Mr. Livingston, and it's past 10:30, it's way past 10:30, so we can't move his issue. And where did Mr. Delia go? Oh, he's behind the podium. We've spoken with the clerk. We can fit you in January. You will be the number 2 matter. The first matter is going to be a guaranteed short matter involving maybe a pool or something like that. That's January the 8th, 2025. We have a reorg meeting at 6:30, and we will proceed with the regular meeting immediately following that. And so I want to just get council to confer. We announced that adjournment today will avoid renotice obligations. Bob? Yes?
Okay, you agree to the continuance?
Oh, we agree to the time to make a decision, certainly.
Okay. All right, so you're absolved of renotice, and...
Okay, well, I want to make sure if I may.
Yes.
Members of the public who are here to participate, testify, or just observe, tonight's meeting has been postponed until January 8th at 6:30 PM. You will not get any further notice other than this announcement, and thank you.
And this is
And
for
thank
the,
you.
and this is for the Rife property on Marne Highway, so everybody knows. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Delia.
Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you for your patience and your client's patience.
No, we understand.
We could do a roll call on that?
Yeah, I guess we ought to do a roll call on that. I was just trying to reach for my agenda. Do a roll call on this adjournment, please.
You can have it first? Anybody?
A move to,
Mr.
I'll move myself as chair to adjourn the matter to the date and time specified.
And Mr. Holden, you're second it?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. McKay?
Yes?
Mr. Holden?
Yes.
Mrs. Torti?
Yes.
Mr. Bradley?
Yes.
Mrs. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Novarita?
Yes.
Mr. C. Murphy? Mr. R. Murphy? And Ms. Costco?
Yes.
All right, that concludes,
Mr. Chairman, I forgot to say one thing. All of you have a great holiday.
and you too.
You too.
You too, Mr. Delia.
Happy New Year.
That concludes the items for business. We now have minutes, November 7, 2024. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Bradley?
Yes.
Mrs. Kelly?
Yes.
Mrs. Torti?
Yes.
Mr. Novarita?
Yes.
Mr. C. Murphy?
Yes.
Ms. Costco?
Yes.
Mr. Holden?
Yes.
Mr. R. Murphy? And Mr. McKay?
Yes. So next we have a resolution to memorialize. This is the Iraqi matter, which involved the homing pigeons. You'll remember that, I'm sure. I have a motion 2024-29. Can I have a motion to approve the resolution as drafted?
So move.
Another second?
Second.
Let me stop. The only ones that can vote on this would be Mr. Bradley, Mr. C. Murphy, Ms. Costco, and Mr. McKay.
Okay.
I'll make a motion.
So we have a motion.
Yeah.
We have a motion from Paul?
And you I'm sorry, you made the motion, correct?
Oh, and I'll second.
Okay, then that's Mr. C. Murphy,
Yes.
Ms. Costco?
Yes.
Mr. Bradley?
Yes.
And Mr. McKay?
Yes. I have a little bit in the way of correspondence. You have the sheets. If there's no particular interest in any piece, can I have a motion to receive and file the correspondence?
I make a motion that we receive and file the correspondence.
So moved. Second.
Mrs. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Bradley?
Yes.
Mrs. Torti?
Yes.
Mr. Novarita?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Ms. Costco?
Yes.
Mr. Holden?
Yes.
Mr. R. Murphy? And Mr. McKay?
Yes. Any professional comments tonight?
Similar, happy holidays and happy new year to everybody.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Ditto from all of us.
Yeah, that's everybody.
All of us. Yes.
Yes, this is my last meeting.
Yes.
This is, so you picked a good meeting to
Go out on.
go out on.
No.
Start out with a bang.
Well, Tish, we'll miss you, and we figure you'll probably come by to sit in the gallery and be a professional witness sometime.
Maybe.
Yeah,
Definitely do Zoom for a while.
great.
Frank did.
All right, public comments. I see one lady in our audience, and happy to hear from you if you want, but, nope, okay. You had a chance. All right, motion to adjourn's in order. So moved. All in favor?
Bradley.
Aye.